Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. Place about games, friends, getting better, and clapping profusely in the MinnMax studio. No Discord, cutting us out.
He started a slow clap.
I'm Ben Hansen. I'm joined in the studio by Leo Vader.
Oh, God.
I set my chair on my toe already.
Joined by Kyle Hilliard in the studio.
Hello. Charles should stand up like Leo did, just to tower over
Wouldn't
all
that
of
be
us.
funny? It's not a joke how tall Charles Hart is.
You're right, I'm
Charles
sorry.
Hart, welcome to MinnMax, sir. Don't do it. No, Charles, no!
Shadow of the Colossus
It's
up in
impossible!
I respect your height.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Flying in from beautiful Ohio, that is.
This and also this state is great.
You like it so far?
I very brief, not spent a lot of time here, but I don't feel like I usually visit places and I'm like I could live there. I feel like while being here, I'm like this is really nice. Like maybe I also came on a really nice day.
Yeah.
Alex Van Aken and I ate tacos outside at a restaurant.
Because you've been here on the ground for like 3 hours, so I think if you just eat tacos outside anywhere, you can be
And
like,
to be clear,
today,
the weather today is like that. We're done after tomorrow.
it's as good as it gets.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
It's so good. But it does, you're right, like the first blast of like a summery day in Minnesota is just like, first blast of a spring day, you see it a little bit, then first blast of summer, it's like everyone's out and about, everyone's smiling.
Yeah, so many families on the way here.
Oh
like,
my God,
together.
people tipping their caps to you as you walk down the sidewalk. It's beautiful. Charles Hart, video editor here for MinnMax, helping out here and there, and then also associate editor for Game Informer, where you work with Kyle, half Game Informer at this table. My God.
Right. This is my first time meeting Kyle, and this is the first time we've done MinnMax together.
Oh, interesting.
That's right.
I've been doing MinnMax stuff for months now, but I haven't. Every time I look at the lineup, I don't say anything, but I'm like, no, Kyle.
We try to keep you separate. We don't want Game Informer kind of taking over, because if it's a majority of Game Informer people on a podcast, GameStop legally does own MinnMax.
And by the way, we had an issue meeting today, Charles, which you weren't there for because of trial. So I was hoping we could take some time to discuss what he has planned for the next issue.
Yeah, that sounds
The
great.
main issue I got is that we're having meetings during a podcast.
No applause from me.
Here we go. The reason Charles Hart is here is because we want to see him. It's weird to say. But also because we hit our goal on Patreon, and so we are going to be streaming a Dungeons & Dragons one-shot session. We're streaming that on Thursday on Twitch. You can give us a follow on Twitch. Otherwise, it'll be up on podcast in the podcast feed. Leo, slow me down. It's going to be in the podcast feed for $5 supporters in the near future, and then also it's going to be up on YouTube as well if you want to see Sarah and Leo and Charles and I whisked away to a fantastical adventure. And we're doing that because we hit that goal on Patreon. So thanks again to the community for flying Charles out here and letting him invade this basement for one last podcast in this basement before we shut it all down and I move to a new house and slowly build up a new studio.
This is the last one? Really?
One last day.
Wow.
Thank you for doing it, because I didn't want to be the one to do it.
Yeah. I got you. Hey, on this very episode of the MinnMax Show, we're talking about so many things. Nothing but sun and roses, everybody. We're talking about, Leo, Nintendo confirmed the Switch 2 is happening.
I've been hearing about that for 10 years, of course. I'm sure they have.
Also, what is this? Microsoft shut down Arkane Austin, Tango Gameworks, and a couple other studios. We're going to talk about Microsoft's disastrous, brutal week here as well. And this is why podcasting is surreal, because for weeks now, maybe like a week and a half, Leo's like, I've been dying to talk about Prey from 2017. I got into it. I want to talk about it on the podcast. And it's like, okay, well, this is the week to do it. You're in the studio. And then this news hits. The studio that developed Prey is being shut down by Microsoft. It is bizarre timing.
I have a responsibility. I feel like when I got into Prey, I should have reached out to that studio and gone, something horrible is about to happen.
Right. The Leo curse. I didn't think about it that way. That's obvious.
It's so reliable. It's crazy.
We're going to be talking about Hades 2. Charles has been playing a lot. I have a feeling it's the current Game Informer cover story as well. So we're going to read that whole cover story out loud. It's going to be sweet. We're going to be talking about Animal Well. Is it Animal Well, or Animal Well? Look at this. You'll find out.
Animal Good.
Little Kitty Big City we're talking about. Now look, I understand you at home might say, podcast off when I talk about how much I want to talk about this next topic, but I promise we can make it fun. I am dying to talk to Charles about Funko Fusion.
This could be the whole episode.
I'm so excited to talk to you about that weird game
much to talk about
that's coming out. I want to talk a little bit about Batman Arkham Shadow, the VR game, and some other odds and ends. And then back half of the show, of course, we have questions submitted by the community over there on Patreon. How you feeling, Leo?
Psyched. Love an in-person cast.
It's weird. Like, I was just so spoiled. We got to do so many of the deepest dives on Rebirth in person, where it's almost, I saw it as a badge of honor, where some people tuning into that first episode are like, it's a little squirrely. It's a little jokey. It's like, we still talked about Clouds Past for 3.5 hours or whatever, but they're like, I don't know. It just felt too energetic. And it's like, yeah, it's because people are excited to be in a podcast studio together. It's such a rare treat.
They were mad that you were too excited?
You know what I saw? Here's what I saw. I saw some people recommending the Rebirth Deepest Dive to other people, but trying to like qualify it, like on Reddit and stuff, by being like, normally they're not this weird. Like, normally it's not this, just
the joke's too funny.
Joke's too funny.
You're going back to jail.
That's exactly it. Hey, Switch 2. It is a weird state of affairs that just this week, check your calendar, everybody, Nintendo officially announced that they're making a hardware follow-up to the Nintendo Switch, which is something they hadn't done. Am I wrong, Kyle? I don't think they've acknowledged it. There's no like NX rumors. There's no code name. This is just finally confirmation of something that we've literally been talking about for, it feels like decades.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like this is the first confirmation, which is like, the big thing to take away from it is like, this is a thing that is going to exist. Because up until this point, it's always like, next year it's going to happen. Next year it's going to happen, to the point where, I don't know about you guys, but I'm just like, I just ignore all that stuff. Like, it's just not, it's like, I'm not, there's, unless it's a tweet from a Nintendo executive that says, hello, it's me, the Nintendo executive.
Please believe me. Here's myself with today's newspaper.
Yeah.
But I think
they could attach a picture and I'd believe it more.
Yeah.
But it's just, hey, it's me.
Hey, this is straight up me.
You up, new Switch.
Do you think that genuinely, so here's the tweet from Nintendo. They said, this is Furukawa speaking, president of Nintendo.
Like that. This is Kyle Hilliard speaking.
This also, obviously, everybody heard this on the PA system in their house. This is the
tornado siren? No, it's Furukawa speaking. We'll make an announcement about the successor to Nintendo Switch within this fiscal year.
By the way, that reads like they're also annoyed by all the rumor stories.
Sure.
Like,
please shut up. Well, I feel like it's been an extra long period of being like, switch, because we've been dealing with Bloomberg talking about that Switch Pro, you guys. It's super duper happening. And I feel like that was like 2018 that Bloomberg started shooting off flares from the tallest skyscraper and saying, Switch Pro! And now it's like, not quite. And that just kind of naturally transitioned into Switch 2 rumors and all this stuff. Anyways, but so Furukawa, as you recall, they said, it will have been over 9 years since we announced the existence of Nintendo Switch back in March of 2015. We will be holding a Nintendo Direct this June regarding the Nintendo Switch software lineup for the latter half of 2024. But please be aware there will be no mention of the Nintendo Switch successor during that presentation. Not even a little fun Easter egg. Not a nod in any way. So I guess it's him just putting out the fires preemptively saying, we're going to be doing stuff in June. Don't expect anything, anybody.
He should have thrown Hollow Knight in there too.
I was gonna say the team chairing needs to tweet that out before.
Hello, this is team chairing.
Like just Nintendo Indie Showcase. Hey, we're not doing it.
There will be no mention.
Showcase. Sorry, no.
I do genuinely appreciate that though. Of like, we're gonna have a thing in June, but we're not gonna talk about Switch.
Right.
So don't expect us.
What is the fire they're putting out though?
I think everyone just assuming like at any moment they're going to drop the trailer that's going to reveal.
And what's
the
wrong
new
with
Switch
that?
hardware.
Yeah, I was about to say, to Leo's point, is that a fire or is that just hype?
Is that something that gets
you know,
us excited and makes us think anything could happen in this crazy world?
I assume it means that when the June Direct happens and it's like, we have one more thing to show you, and then it's like new skins for Princess Peach Showtime or whatever, that it's not immediately
that would be their one last thing.
Or it's gonna like, remember years ago when it's like, we have one more thing for you guys, and it was fireworks in Nintendo Land. Like showed like 3 minutes of fireworks going on. It's like, are you kidding me? But I think it's what's the downside? Then everybody goes on Twitter or whatever and says that was the worst showcase I've ever seen in my life. I didn't even talk about the Switch 2, and I worked myself into a frenzy about it. And then yada yada yada, the stock price tanks. I don't really know the next step in that.
I guess,
downfall.
yeah. It just seems like a little much to do an announcement like this. I feel like they could just go, and one more thing, it's bad. And they'll be fine.
And then also David Gibson, the industry analyst, apparently he noted that during the financial results call, that somebody, like a shareholder, asked, like, how do we refer to the new console? And the president of Nintendo said, Switch Next Model is the appropriate way to describe it.
That is interesting
It
to
is.
me because that is a Switch 2 in all but name, right? Like this isn't
Right.
Super
Yeah, sure.
Nintendo to N64 to GameCube. This
Right.
is like
Yeah.
this is like I don't know what would be like Game Boy to Game Boy Pocket or something.
Or
I don't-
DS to DSi, or like
Maybe.
Yeah. I think
It's-
it could be
think
in
it's
that
gonna be
arena.
more than that,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah, but to me it says nobody can misinterpret this as the real name.
Right.
Sure.
I
That
don't
feels
know,
like a
man.
priority.
So if you
If
were
they announced it was officially Switch new console, I mean, I would both be surprised and not be surprised at all.
Nintendo.
Yeah, do you feel like that changed the Vegas gambling odds of them having Switch in the title, of calling it Super Switch or something, because he's like, just, shareholders, just between us, call it Switch Next Model.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, that is like, because Nintendo likes to just draw lines, right? And be like, this is the brand new thing.
Right.
And the one time they kind of didn't was Wii U, which was like a disaster. But I mean, that's not going to be the case here. It's going to be a Switch sequel of some kind.
Okay, but it could be a very confusing situation for everybody out there.
Yeah.
That we've talked about 1,000 times in our predictions episode and whatnot. But also, real quick, investor news. If you're ready, Leah, if you can handle it.
Love it.
Sit down, buddy. Switch sales over 140 million at this point, compared to the DS is at 154. PS2 is at 158. So it's number 3 right now of all time. I think it's going to top PS2 by the end of the Switch life cycle. Compared to GameCube was 118. To Game Boy 118.
Okay.
Everyone relax. Game Boy.
Calm down.
Wii at 101. GameCube at 21.7,
Woof.
which is crazy in retrospect. And the Wii U at 13.56. Whew. Also, Kyle, Princess Peach Showtime 1.22 million. Mario vs. Donkey Kong 1.12 million. Okay, should we get to the sad stuff now? We don't need in the Switch conversation.
Wait, what was Peach or Mario vs. Donkey Kong higher? What was
Peach beat Donkey Kong. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess
That
that's
makes
not
sense to
surprising.
me,
Yeah.
I was surprised. Tears of the Kingdom 20.6 million copies. Mario Wonder 13.44, which I thought with the
MinnMax is surprised about that?
well,
The biggest
it's
Mario
just if Mario
haters on the
Wonder just
internet?
tried. I think it could get those numbers up. But it's interesting that with the Mario movie bump, it seems like all those the real
Yeah.
enthusiasm there went to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is now at 62 million copies sold. Over you think the biggest movie in the world last year that everyone would go get Mario Wonder, but they just get Mario Kart instead.
Or Peach. I feel like that had a factor in that. I didn't think about that connection. She was,
could
a
be.
character.
Okay, let's get to the real news. We've been trying to delay it. And Leo, I said, by God, we have to talk about this. I don't care what you say. Just a haymaker for the industry happening on Tuesday here, where Microsoft said, hey, everybody, we're actually going to be shutting down Arkane Austin and Tango Gameworks and Alpha Dog Studios and Roundhouse Games. They're going to be absorbed into ZeniMax Online. But effectively, 4 studios we are killing. Okay, thank you, goodbye. It was just the worst corporate speak presentation. So just for,
And they misspelled studio names, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
They
I
said
think
games
it's-
instead of studios and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Alpha Dog, yeah.
And vice versa.
Right. So full history here. Arkane Austin co-developed the first Dishonored, and then made Prey in 2017, then made Redfall, not the best game to go out on, and Microsoft says, oh, no more. Completely gone as a studio. They said that they might be, what was the official wording? They might be moving some of those developers around to different places. I'm curious to see if that's clear how they're shifting folks around, because it certainly sounds like, Harvey Smith, who is one of the early hires there and kind of a leading voice at Arkane overall. It's confusing because he was the creative director for Dishonored 2, which was developed in Lyon. So he left Austin for a little bit to go to Lyon, and then he came back for Redfall. But he had a whole Twitter thread where it seemed like he was obviously reeling, like all these developers are. But then his tone seems to be like, all right, that's the end of the road. Like, it's not like they're going to pick him up and move him to Arkane Lyon or anything. He very much was in the phase of talking about, well, 16 years at Arkane. It's been a great ride. And then he says, maybe I want to, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of celebrating the team, which is nice. But he says, part of me is also wondering about team size, the role of certain types of creative groups, the role of bigger companies, etc. Maybe there's a sweet spot for the types of games I'm driven to make in terms of team size. So he's planning his next step, but he said right now I'm just trying to take care of the team.
Yeah.
And maybe he'd join Rafa Colantonio, who is the co-founder of Arkane, and he made Wolfeye Studios, who made Evil West, that game that Leo, you enjoyed so much a couple of years ago and stuff. So I don't know if Harvey want to start something new or what, but we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Charles, the big news hit. What was your gut reaction? How are you feeling about Microsoft's just taking the axe to these beloved studios?
I'm not a business guy, but this doesn't make any sense to me. And I was hoping maybe one of you could explain to me. It's kind of like if you went grocery shopping and you spent a lot of time building up how you're going to go grocery shopping.
Right.
And then you buy some like really expensive food and then you're like, actually, I'm not going to eat this, and you throw it away.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, another way of looking at it, and this just for a full explanation here. So Matt Booty had the official breakdown and kind of statement about all this stuff. And he says, we're making these tough decisions to create capacity to increase investment in other parts of our portfolio and focus on priority games.
Yes!
And is that supposed to make me feel better? Is that supposed to, I don't know what the...
High priority games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's not making you feel better about these changes. Guys, are grounded in prioritizing high impact titles and further investing in Bethesda's portfolio of blockbuster games and beloved worlds which you have nurtured over many decades.
Don't worry, they're not important games. We save the important studios. We're prioritizing. That's what it feels like what it's saying to me.
There's low priority games.
Yeah.
And we got rid of those. And now it's just our high priority ones.
It does feel like a big shift here for Microsoft is it feels like they've been infected by Activision. You know, like buying Activision Blizzard, which we should note, they spent $70 billion buying Activision Blizzard.
Return some of that or something? Get like a refund?
It'd be nice.
90-day warranty on that or something.
But buying that, it always felt like Activision over the last 15 years has been like, look, we're just tripling down on, all right, it was Guitar Hero for a little bit, it was Skylanders for a little bit, now it's Call of Duty forever. We just got to focus on the biggies. We don't have time for anything else other than the high impact titles. And now Microsoft seems to be in this messaging. That's the takeaway as well, is like, we got to triple down on IPs that work, that we have. And it's been nice knowing you, studios that we bought, but zip.
Including funneling more resources to Bethesda in the wake of the Fallout TV show being such a smash hit.
Well, it'd be weird. So they took the profits from that partnership and then funneled it towards other aspects of Bethesda. It's just a weird...
No, I mean, like, this is a new important thing but, you know, there's a lot of people now who saw how successful that show was and says, why don't we have a Fallout thing in the works? Why is that like 3 games from now we're doing a Fallout?
Right. Yeah. And Todd Howard's like, well, we'd love to go faster, but it's like, this is 1,000 times more complicated. I'm sure, you know, it's so easy to be like, well, Microsoft's a profitable company. Look how much money the CEO's making. Like, if you just shift those numbers around, these studios could stay around forever. And it's like, you could probably dissect the financial behind the scenes stuff of what's going on at Microsoft for an entire year and not get fully to the bottom. Yeah. Certainly, it looks like that CEO could drop his pay a fair bit there. And again, from the poor man layman's perspective, it's like, Fallout's huge. How about you put Arkane Austin on a new Fallout game, make some action focused Fallout game, just something like that. I know it's such an immediate reaction for this thing, like Fallout TV show and studios that you don't know what to do with the future of. Here you go. But
the big thing for me was Tango, and my reaction was like, I don't know how you do any better than Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah. You can't.
Like, if that is not like a success story that like locks you in for a long period of time, and now there's stories, there's reports that they had a sequel that they were pitching.
Right.
Like, I don't, what can you do better than having a huge hit that just comes out of nowhere and everyone loves, unless it just like didn't sell as well as we assume, you know?
But all of the messaging, what's so infuriating about this whole thing is all the messaging from Microsoft has been like, hey, look, we bought these studios because we want them to do what those studios do best, do what they're passionate about. And the beauty of Game Pass is like, it's a subscription model, so we can kind of support smaller, funkier experiences. We don't need to get a line of cars going to Walmart to pick up Hi-Fi Rush. And, you know, they message like, hey, it's got millions of players technically out there for this thing. And still, it's just so gut-wrenching to be like, you could create truly one of the best games, one of my favorite games in years and years and years. Like, I absolutely loved Hi-Fi Rush last year, and then the result is, not so much.
Yeah.
And it's absurd, too, because there was that Microsoft leak earlier with the court filing, where the leak says they're working on Doom Year Zero, and they're working on a sequel to Ghostwire Tokyo. So in theory, Tango was working on that. And then also they were working on Dishonored 3. And so I haven't seen the reporting that Arkane Austin being shut down means the end of that Dishonored 3 project, or if the idea is Arkane Lyon was working on Dishonored 3 and the Blade game at the same time, which seems like a bit much. So I'd love to see some more reporting to figure out exactly what happened with that leak of Dishonored 3 and which studio is actually working on that.
I mean, I guess that leak is like the other thing about it is like you can't. It doesn't guarantee that Dishonored 3 was in like full swing.
That's true,
Right.
Or that it still is now.
Right. Yeah.
And they retain. Microsoft owns Ghostwire, right? There wasn't any messaging of like Tango can keep that and maybe it'll get picked up by another publisher or something, right? Like Microsoft,
I think Tango's just done, dissolved. As
and
a
then
studio
Microsoft just owns Ghostwire Tokyo and Hi-Fi Rush, and if they ever wanted a sequel, like they'd have to just contract another developer to make it.
If, Hi-Fi Rush, that world is so fun, those characters are so fun. If they ever license out for like an animated show based on Hi-Fi Rush, now after killing the studio that worked their asses off to create that miracle of a game, I'm going to punch a hole in a wall.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to watch it just out of principle.
No,
Yeah.
It's so brutal. And it seems like it really just came out of the blue for everybody at that studio. So their official statement says, Tango Gameworks will also close. We are thankful for their contributions to Bethesda and players around the world. Hi-Fi Rush will continue to be available to players on the platforms it is today. But it just felt like such a weird Hail Mary as well, to be like, I don't know, rumors of a Switch version, and then we released the PS5 version. What's this? First month of sales? Not great. Okay, and done. Like, how well would that PS5 version had to have sold to maybe change anything within the studio's future? It's just, there's no world.
I mean, the timing just wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't matter. I mean, they don't know how well it's sold right now, right?
I think they probably have some ideas.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, I think they got those numbers, but it's just impossible. It's so infuriating to think of that studio creating such a leap, going from Evil Within 1 and 2 to Hi-Fi Rush, nailing it with a level of polish that is just impossible, and goodbye. And we just did the John Johannes interview. We had 2 of them, I guess, now on MinnMax's channel, but it was him talking to Koji Fox from Final Fantasy 16. And, I saw comments on YouTube for that interview, and there's like, it seems like John has no idea this is about to happen. And that interview was like weeks ago.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that certainly seems to be the takeaway, is that like all these studios just were caught flat-footed about the idea of the axe coming down seemingly out of the blue. But Jason Schreier had some reporting over at Bloomberg, because Bloomberg gets everything right, including the Switch Pro stuff. But where he was talking about like the idea is for these studios, they both released games last year. And so they were starting to ramp up and hire for the new projects. And that's when probably the simple version is that Microsoft can say like, what's this? They want us to invest more in these studios that haven't produced great results. Like, nope, no more hires, therefore also completely gone.
Yeah. It's so exhausting to keep talking about these layoffs, like how often they happen.
Yeah.
Just in the last few years alone. It's hard too to be like, shame on Microsoft, shame on Embracer, shame on like these individual companies that are doing these things and not like zooming out and being like, big picture, why does this keep happening? There's a lot of talk right now about the industry kind of collapsing under its own weight. Yeah. And certainly I agree, Charles, that it doesn't make sense that this is happening, and it reminds me of an old adage about capitalism that if something doesn't make sense, it's because somebody's making money off of it.
Yeah.
Whoa. And I think that's going to keep being true.
Get a load of this.
Get a load of this. Capitalism bad.
That's so bad.
No, it's just
a great one.
It's so infuriating to think of like how many presentations Microsoft has had since gobbling up all these studios and talking about like, hey, it's all about empowering the developers. Yeah. We believe in them. It's like they can no longer inch towards that type of messaging ever again. It's like all goodwill just dead.
I think it was Imran's tweet that was like, when are we going to just stop like believing what these people say at face value?
Right.
Like they just can't be trusted on their messaging.
No. Double Fine's going to be working on Excel like they joked about when they got acquired.
Yeah. No, that is the it's just brutal to think about these studios that went down, and then thinking about, okay, look at the other studios that Microsoft acquired that now are probably fairly quivering. Like,
I don't blame them at all.
Freaking think of Ninja Theory releasing Hellblade 2. You think Hellblade 2 is going to do numbers? Are you out of your minds? It's a game that the creative director for the first one said, this is not a fun game. It's some artsy
Well, he's
project.
not there anymore, so this one's going to be fun. This one's going to be a joyride.
He was insisting on the lack of fun so that they kick him to the curb. But like that game, its wildest dreams would be if it could hit Hi-Fi Rush numbers, I feel like, for Hellblade 2. Although I bet a lot of people did buy that first Hellblade. I'm curious to see how that would stack up. But like, there's no universe where Microsoft's going to sit back and be like, Hellblade 2, what an overperformer. This is selling consoles. People are flooding into Game Pass for Hellblade 2. And at that point, then, what, Ninja Theory is just scared of what? Just give us a Call of Duty, please. Like, what do we have to do to stay safe? And also thinking about like.
Ninja Theory Call of Duty sounds kind of interesting.
I'm with you, and that's what I want to do on this podcast: is message put every developer on Call of Duty.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
No, but it's so wild to think
There's
of
not
like
enough Call of Duty spin-off games.
Yeah.
I'd love to explore that world.
they were gonna make the weird like Roman era Call of Duty game back in the day. Yeah.
What does that even mean?
I think was it Sledgehammer that was working, or it's Treyarch? There was some studio that was making the like Roman era Call of Duty. You know, the first time there was ever a Call to Duty on Earth was the idea.
Whoa.
But no, it's fascinating to think of like, you know, Toys for Bob, who was also absorbed in the Activision Blizzard thing, who created Crash 4, a bunch of other great platformers, right? And they were being put on Call of Duty stuff, and then they said, actually, we're going to go independent, and they bought themselves out. And it's like, they probably are dodging an axe because of that. And now we look at those other Microsoft studios, and it's like, if you guys can do that, you totally should. If this is the level of faith you have in your parent company, you're screwed. Like, I think of, Kong, what is the name of the studio developing South of Midnight?
Oh, gosh. What was their previous game?
The one that looked like BioShock, but it wasn't. Compulsion Games is the name of it. Yes.
But what is the game name?
We Happy Few.
Oh, We Happy Few.
Yes.
Right.
So I think of like Compulsion Games, and it was cool seeing like, oh, it's that bizarre teaser trailer for South of Midnight where it's the cool trailer. Blues singer in the swamp in Louisiana, and it's like, you think that's gonna sell? Like, are you out of your minds? Like, it's gonna sell about as well as a Ghostwire Tokyo or anything else in this arena. Like, it's clearly not going to be a high impact title. And if you're just in the pipeline making these games, what do you do? Like, Double Fine, love them dearly. Whatever project they're working on, it's pretty heavily rumored out there. It's not going to tear up the charts. Like, the beauty is you have the Game Pass model, so these studios could make funkier projects. So if all of your corporate messaging is now, we're kind of, you need to be a Call of Duty or bust. Like, we're busting left and right, folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the
in a bad way, Charles.
Not like
busting
Ghostbusters.
left and right.
I am not busting about this news.
Okay.
Don't make me feel good.
I mean, it's that report from a couple weeks ago or months ago that it's like the majority of gamers play like 5 games.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like they want to just have that one of those 5, right? Like that's the goal for sustainability.
That's so dark.
I think about like, we're talking a lot about Hi-Fi Rush, but like Redfall as the last game that Arkane did is like it, and I haven't played it, so feel free to jump in and correct me, but it was one of those games that really looked like it was trying to be so many like trends and like ideas in the industry in the kind of way that it was like they had an idea and they were trying to shape it into something with like wider appeal.
Square peg, round hole a little bit. Yeah.
And it's frustrating in the way of like, if you do a Hi-Fi Rush and go off and do your own thing and you do something innovative and new and it's great, you get shut down. And if you try to follow the trends and like shape your thing that might be that into something that might also work, there's obviously a lot of other issues with that game, but like crash and burn in the end, and that's like
and that's under the umbrella of one of the world's biggest, most financially successful companies. And even those 2 paths under that, it's still a dead end.
It's also a game where it's like so clearly like they weren't done. Like
they had a big patch that they were working on up until
right, and the messaging was like, oh, we'll make good for that, but we're killing all that. But it was like the offline mode patch and all the other updates there. Matt Booty just said, not so much.
I mean,
new playable characters.
It's easy to like claim optimism after an event like this, but like I do because of Arkane's history. Like I could totally see Redfall being a game we would have checked in from 6 months from now. Leo would be on the podcast, be like, "Hey, picked up Redfall," and like a total Fallout 76 story. Like I could have seen that trajectory for that game. You know?
Yeah. Even though Phil Spencer in that Kind of Funny interview was like, It wasn't one of those games.
Right.
He even said like,
That was so weird.
yeah, where he's like, you know what? There's
so
some
weird.
games that like at the
He
core.
was like, they
you
can't all be Hi-Fi Rush. What can I tell you?
Yeah. So we had Andrew Burns right into the podcast. I'll jump this one early. He says, "Are we finally ready to stop giving Phil Spencer a pass because he wears gamer t-shirts and does a podcast now and again?"
Oh, I forgot about the gamer t-shirts actually.
I like him now.
That's kind of cool.
There's a difference between being a good communicator and spewing a bunch of platitudes in public forums that have nothing to do with what is actually going on behind the scenes. Yeah. I still think for a gaming executive, he is upper tier communicator, but you're totally right.
Yeah.
Proof's in the pudding. At this point, if you're just going to stab these studios in the back that quickly and brutally out of the blue, it's like, okay, well, now you can never climb out of this hole. Like, it's our job to not forget how they just these developers over.
And maximum benefit of the doubt, he had no control over this, and it was the board or whatever that made all these things happen with third-party
Hopefully
consultants.
he fought for them, you know. Hopefully,
Sure, yeah. Maximum benefit of the doubt, he fought for them really hard.
Yeah.
He still, by being, has he said anything?
No.
Yeah.
Well, he did tweet, "May the 4th be with you." May the 4th. That was his last tweet. If that counts for anything, I don't know.
But by being silent, by continuing to accept the paycheck and keep going, he does not have values.
No.
And there's no sugarcoating it or like saying, well, what are you going to do? You got to get a lot of money. Have values.
It's a failure of a company. Like, they had to shut a part of their thing down. They like phrase it as like, we're gonna improve and move on from here. It's like, no, you did a bad job if you're closing these studios. Like, that's not a good strategic thing. That was like you didn't manage your money well enough, and you're being like, it's best for me to move on.
I went back just to light my soul on fire, and I watched like a bunch of videos of like the announcements of the acquisitions. You know, like Activision Blizzard one was very like orchestral music, Overwatch characters, yada yada. But then the Bethesda one too is just like, we're so excited to be part of this family. Together, we can forge a new path into the future. These studios will never be more empowered. It's just such a hollow shell in retrospect. It is infuriating. And I just keep thinking about those other studios, like In Exile, working on Clockwork Revolution. Remember that game?
Yes.
Where it's just like Obsidian, beloved Obsidian with Avowed.
Yeah.
Even like Rare with Everwild. If Everwild doesn't hit Sea of Thieves level of popularity, which is their obvious benchmark that Microsoft wants them to hit now, because Sea of Thieves is like
it's their most successful game by any metric.
It's like the classic thing. Look, if we want a living game, we want a live service game. It's like Sony has Helldivers 2, Microsoft has Sea of Thieves. Everything else hasn't worked. In the recent era, unless I'm missing something obvious, right? And it's just like those studios, that is just such a ridiculous amount of pressure on all of those games at this point.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine them shutting down Rare? Like, it's probably going to happen with this attitude. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel optimistically, I think Sea of Thieves kind of saves them, right?
Sure.
But yeah, everyone, I mean, I have faith in no studio that Microsoft owns now.
Well, I mean, and also, you know, like Leo mentioned, it's the broader industry. We couldn't just zoom in fully on Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft had those layoffs earlier in the year. Remember, they laid off 1,900 people.
Fresh.
Right.
Yes, but then also, I mean, Sony just killed London studio. They killed the Concrete Genie developer. Was that last year? Pixel Opus. Like, they're also killing people. Studios left and right.
I know. It's a matter of time until Sony does the same thing and we have the same amount of outrage about what Sony did.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like, you know, we just had an interview that went up this week with Mark Healy, the co-founder of Media Molecule. And he's like, look, I mean, I wasn't in the discussion room. I don't know exactly, but he's like, I would imagine, this is what he said. He's like, I imagine it was a coin toss for Sony between shutting down London Studio or Media Molecule. Like all these studios are just right on the razor's edge now.
Gosh.
It's the idea of tripling down on what's successful, even though more money than ever is flowing into these studios or these publishers. It's infuriating.
I met this really cool group called the Sock Pop Collective at Day of the Devs.
Yeah.
That made Stacklands on Steam.
Okay.
And they're 4 people, I think, and they're like a true collective where they share all the profits a quarter each. And they have a Patreon, and their goal is just make as many games as possible, 1 a month, I think. They want to make 100 games.
Whoa.
And they just did that until one caught on, Stacklands, and they put more resources into it, and they made millions of dollars and enough to like propel themselves to keep doing what they want to do based off like, you know, winning the lottery once, which is how video games work, really.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a cool way of doing it. And there's going to be more ways of doing it like that in the future. And I think we're all going to be doing our best to support those ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Indies and slightly larger than indies.
Yeah. Last thing, I thought it was probably the most interesting tweet that I saw out of this whole thing. But Dinga Bakaba, who worked on Dishonored and Arkane Leon there, and now he's the creative director for Blade. He tweeted out when Arkane Austin was shut down, he said, "This is absolutely terrible. Permission to be human. To any executive reading this, friendly reminder that video games are an entertainment/cultural industry, and your business as a corporation is to take care of your artist entertainers and help them create value for you. Don't throw us into gold fever gambits." And it goes on and on. It's a very good tweet if you're going to check that whole thing. But it's that same idea of like, you think Blade's going to save Arkane Leon? Like, look at Firaxis with Marvel's Midnight Suns. Like, just slapping Marvel on something isn't an automatic win here. And like, yeah, you know what? I hope that game's cool, but like, seeing it as you're safe because you're working on a Marvel studio or a Marvel game, like, I just don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah.
Brutal. Especially brutal because before Redfall, Arkane Austin made a little game called Prey back in 2017. Leo, what is your journey with Prey? Because we'd streamed Moon Crash a while ago on our channel.
I didn't know enough about the game to really grasp that.
You hadn't played any of it before Moon Crash?
I played an hour and a half at launch.
Okay.
And I didn't quite have the energy for it at the time. And I knew this is there for me. This feels like my type of thing when I'm in the mood, when I have the energy for it. And that took a long ass time. But then I had my ESP sense go off that the studio was in trouble.
Naturally.
And so I picked it back up on Steam Deck, which it is like one of the best games on Steam Deck. It runs amazingly well. And it has this ridiculous control scheme where you're using all 4 back paddles.
Oh, like it's like designed for, like, you didn't add that in? Like that
No,
was in
by default it does that.
So I don't think I've seen a game that uses the paddles.
No, I never have had to press them at all. With
Well,
the
Aperture Desk Job.
You're right, Kyle.
We stand a legend. We stand a legend.
Yeah.
Sorry to derail.
Every time I want to play Steam Deck, I boot up Aperture Desktop and play through it just to get my senses flowing.
Never deleted it. It's not getting uninstalled.
Smart.
Right on. But yeah, it like taught me that absurd control scheme that actually works really well for this really complicated game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Basic, for anybody who doesn't know, it's an immersive sim set on a derelict space station that has been taken over by aliens whose core thing is that they can imitate anything. There's these little mimics that turn into mugs and chairs that you have to detect them by seeing them wiggle a little bit, or eventually you can like scan them.
It's so good. It's just constant tension of jump scares, prop hunt jump scare scenario.
Yes, and you get to be the props too. You get that ability, which I totally had forgotten about.
Me too.
You start with 3 giant skill trees, and I'm like, great, everything on these skill trees are interesting, and then it gives you 3 more skill trees that are all your powers, and I'm like, I didn't even expect more from this, but now it's just 3 more where again everything is interesting, and I can't think of another game where 6 skill trees are full of interesting stuff.
I can't. There's no greater rush than finding out there's another skill tree, or like in like God of War Ragnarok when like a new tab opens up and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much more.
It's true. I thought I knew.
Yeah.
But so I went for Mimic right away because you get Typhon powers. They're called Typhons. And I was like, I'm going to get Mimic because I have to, but when am I ever going to use that really? Turning into a mug.
Right.
And the answer is all the time.
Constantly.
Because I will be like cornered in this closet knowing this giant lumbering phantom is coming towards me.
Yeah.
And I'll quick go to Mimic, see what I can turn into a lamp. And I turn into a lamp and this phantom rounds the corner as I like tip over from the weight of myself. And his detection goes up a little bit from the movement. I'm like, is he going to spot me? No. But he's creeping towards me. He's about to bump into me. And then he stubs his toe on me and goes full detected like, oh, this is a guy. And I'm like, can I use my other mind powers, my psychic stun and stuff as a lamp? No way, right? And then I can. And I blast him and then turn back into a human and shoot him with my other guns and stuff.
That's so good. I remember, so I went on the cover story trip. This is a Game Informer thing. Are you guys familiar with Game Informer?
Oh,
yeah. It's the cover story trips. It's that whole phrase.
Subscribe.gameinformer.com.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, whatever you prefer. Margaret set both up, so you're
Oh, great. Not sub.
Yeah. No, but I was very lucky. You know, I shared a little video on Twitter, but yeah, I visited Arkane Austin in 2011 for Dishonored 1, and then in 2016 for Prey. And that was like just one of those beautiful little demos where I believe in the Prey demo, they showed that like there's a room filled with instruments And like, yeah, with the mimic power, you can turn into every instrument in this room and create a little one-man band. It's like, all right, now this is the level of immersive sim that I want. Like, you could have a trailer with a big typhon roaring at the end of it. Who cares? But you say in your game you can turn into every instrument in a room and play yourself. That's gaming, baby. That is perfect.
Yes. That's gaming.
Well, also is it
What's gaming?
the dumb, stupid inside joke thing. Then is then I was talking about Prey on the Game Informer Show podcast. Are you guys familiar with that podcast?
I've been
Subscribe to Game Informer.
That's it. That's it.
podcast.
But after that cover story, and I described Prey tongue in cheek, but I said it's just one of those like gamer ass game for gamers, you know. And then Bethesda reached out like, "Hey, could we use that quote for marketing?" And I think Reiner's like, "No, we're not going to put gamer ass game for gamers for marketing Prey."
I do usually turn down like quotes from. You said this on a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm usually like, I just like will just flat out be like, no,
Like just podcasts or like if they take a quote from your review, do you let that?
That's fine because
Okay.
I wrote that and I committed to that.
Yeah.
But if it's like just something I threw out while I'm talking on a podcast, I'm wary of like, I don't.
Yeah, you can't hold us to any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Hellblade 2 might be the best selling game of the year. What do I know? Send you
The better selling Blade game.
yeah,
Could be.
Sorry, but so you blew my mind, Leo, by talking about Prey and saying like this is climbing my all-timer list.
For sure. I'm like 20 hours in, and unless it stumbles for some reason, it's like I'm already planning next playthroughs and stuff. It feels like
and you're
it's on
playing
my
like the
all-time
single
top 10.
player campaign is what you're.
Yeah, I haven't even
Okay.
tried the roguelike mode yet, which will obviously be even more my thing. I think that's safe to say.
You hang on. Let me slow you down. You spit past it. This is climbing all-time top 10.
Yeah.
Like where we at?
I mean, right now, easily number 10.
Okay.
And we'll see where it gets.
All right.
And what did
has
it
it
knock off?
unseated?
Yeah.
Oh, good question. I haven't thought about that much.
Dead
it feels
Island
really
2.
true. Yeah. No, that's something I don't think a lot, though. I haven't thought in a long time. It's
Yeah.
like, this is a new all-timer for me.
Yeah.
And I thought this before the studio closed and everything.
And it's just systems primarily?
Yeah, I mean, I love an immersive sim in theory, and I have trouble getting into some of them, even some of the classics, depending on how obtuse they are or whatever. But this is the new like benchmark of the promise of an immersive sim of like saying yes to everything you want to do and
Right.
giving you these weird questions to ask to answer yes to. Like literally every door being you can lock. You can lock any door and unlock it. And that has to work with every door in the game everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're looking for ways that it doesn't work. And you get this Nerf gun, and you get it and it says it can distract enemies or to interact with buttons. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to find buttons that this doesn't work with, because I'm going to work with every button in the game. You know, screen interactions. I used to get into a locked room by like shooting Nerf darts at the touch screen to like hack the door open. And there was one setup with the locked door and the Nerf gun where I like was getting chased by huge mobs, locked myself in a room. They were all just waiting right out there through the glass window. And I'm like, there's no other way out of here. I've checked. I'm just going to lay a bunch of traps down by the door and then go far away and shoot the door unlocking button with the Nerf gun.
Perfect.
So that I'm not near it when they go off. I don't have to run away or whatever. And it works perfectly.
It's so good.
It's the Nerf gun is one of many weird little gadgets they give you. They don't give you one that's like the solution to everything. They give you like things that help in certain situations but are never too powerful, including the glue gun.
Right, because I remember you can make like a ladder, just like gluing up the side of a wall, then just walking, or like a ramp, I guess.
Climbable glue anywhere on any sheer surface, which is like one of the first things they give you. And that's like such a flex to go like, here's this, it doesn't break the game somehow.
Right.
Like this actually works for the entire time and isn't even overpowered, even though it stuns enemies and stuff. You still like, I'm playing on hard, which is so perfect for scarcity of weapons and how much you have to focus on each enemy. Every encounter is like, I have to combine multiple things and be thoughtful and manage my resources for every single goon on this entire space station.
Typhon, please.
Sorry. Video game terminology. But it's been a really special experience. And just the atmosphere of that world is so cool. So well written. The text logs aren't too long and they're so fascinating. There's so much with the neuromod stuff because it's kind of, you inject neuromods, that's how you get skills. And there's lore that if you remove a neuromod, your mind memories get reset back to when you put that in. Oh. And that's like a core part of the story and comes in all these weird, clever ways. And there's just this one text log that is like talking about how this guy put his consciousness through neuromod technology in like this clone body or whatever, and then he gave it power of attorney to exercise his will, and it's like going to court as this landmark case on whether you can do that. And it's like 2 paragraphs. It's like I've watched a movie about this. But it's just so dense with such great writing like that in every terminal and every little in-world book. It's so cool. There's no filler.
Yeah. And what would you have called the game instead of Prey?
Moon mission.
Oh, that's pretty good. I mean,
With
that's
like big moon, little mission, moon mission.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the classic now. High impact title attempt is like, okay, I mean, that was the pitch, right? It's like, we want to make a spiritual successor to System Shock. Okay, Arkane, you can, but you got to call it Prey. Like, because that's an IP that we own that is
huge IP.
Something to some people.
It's no offense to the original Prey. I did like that game. Some IP are less than new IP. New IP has an immediate value to people as like potentially interesting, I think, and some IP is less valuable than that.
Yeah, I really genuinely think it would have been a bigger hit if it had been called something different. Like, I don't know, because like the connecting to that other game and then canceling a sequel that was announced and had like trailers and stuff.
Yeah.
Like was a little confusing. And then Prey is just doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
Really. It sounds like a hunting game or something, you know? Like it's separated from that sci-fi game.
It could have been called Mimic.
Mimic would have been
That's
Mimic,
fine. That's
Mimic
a
would have
fine
been a
word.
great name. I like that.
Yeah. And have them
Picture
be the star
a
of the
mug
show.
on the cover.
Like,
Get the
like
mug
a
and the mug.
Criterion Collections kind of cover. That'd be
Yes,
awesome.
It worked for Cuphead.
Yeah.
Worked for Cuphead.
IP.
Hey, IP, put it on there. Put it on there.
They should have called it Cuphead and Mugman.
What year did it come out?
2017.
Yeah.
What month did it come out?
Wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
Wait a minute.
I don't know.
I don't know what month Cuphead came out, but it was 2017.
Connect the dots. No, it does feel. I'm happy for Prey in a macabre kind of way, I suppose, because it does feel like since 2017, like that game's reputation has just climbed. Like Moon Crash, that the DLC, I feel like bumped it up a big notch, and now everyone is like, okay, that's now an all-time classic. And it is weird how these studio closures can now like lock in some games as even being more magical in retrospect. I feel like Prey is there. I feel like Hi-Fi Rush now, that it's just a weird one-off of this miracle out of nowhere. Like that game is now like legendary status for a one and done with the unbelievable closure of Tango.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like what a sequel to Hi-Fi would be. Like Johannes starts his own studio and buys the rights or something. Like I don't know. Like
Sure, Microsoft would say, "Hey, take it." Yeah, there's no.
He starts a new studio. Microsoft buys that studio. I
think this cycle has to continue. Yeah. Do you want
Samba Studio, Samba Gameworks.
lock it in?
different dances.
Do you want the deepest of the deep cuts for Prey lore?
Yes.
To the point that it's barely a thing?
Yes.
Okay. I remember on that cover story trip, they were talking about like, oh, it's like a alt history sci-fi movie. So it's not really like our future. It's like the timeline branch. I think it was like with Einstein or something, the timeline branch. So like it's technically a different history leading into Prey here.
Yeah, Kennedy didn't get assassinated.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
And so the creative director, Raf Colantonio, he was like, yeah. And we were just like walking around talking, and he's like, yeah. So like, alt history. So like, in this timeline, like Louis C.K. was president. Controversy noted. And it's one of those things where it's like, wait, are you, really? Is that like a thing written down somewhere? And he's like, yeah, sure. That's how he phrased it. So technically, light canon, I believe, is like there.
But it would have been
when
like
you said controversy noted, like I'm just saying he didn't come up with that, and then stuff happened. You're saying he was like,
It wasn't noted at the time.
It wasn't noted. Yeah.
oh, you were saying that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm saying now
he's
in
a controversial
retrospect,
figure.
that now it's an odd move to say Louis C.K. should be president.
He
but
might
I'm
have
saying
been president in 2017, but in like 2019, no one was voting him.
Right.
He was
Right.
impeached. I thought you were saying in this story back then, Louis C.K. was
Right.
already a problematic
like
figure.
Ben said that.
And
Like-
this was the person that he had picked.
That was his example.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
that would be very
that makes
confusing.
a lot more sense. Okay.
Kevin Spacey was president.
Yeah, it's like, why would you pick him? Dustin Hoffman, then. I don't know.
No, but just thinking about Arkane, it made me think too of like, we did a video which was all about like the pillars of the studio and then kind of walking through like, here's the things we believe. One of them is like, obviously empower the players, all that stuff. But what I always think about is that one of their pillars of their studio they had like printed up on the wall was fuck ladders.
You're right.
Like we don't want any ladders in our games because if you're on a ladder, you're removing abilities from the player. because the control set is different. So you can't like have your gun and your abilities if you're stuck to a ladder. So we just can't have them. And I think Redfall, they eventually went back on that.
There you go.
That's
That was
I don't want to
the
say
downfall, yeah.
there isn't.
It's funny because getting up to a thing that's 8 feet above you, there's like 8 solutions I can think of to that.
Right. And they're more fun and empowering than
Yes.
just clunk, 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 clunk.
And
Even the
just-
fast slide down, not going to do it for you.
Right,
Yeah.
and decision based of like what resource am I going to use to do this?
Yeah, but also, thinking about Arkane Austin too, Raph Colantonio and Harvey Smith are obviously big names that have led projects there and stuff, but there's so much talent. Like one of the sweetest things in that Harvey Smith Twitter thread is he was talking about like what really got him is thinking about like how many hours he spent with so many talented people at Arkane and specifically for them playing D&D. There you go, Charles. So the two most
I was
beautiful letters.
half listening. I was full listening.
No, but he's
He
funny.
perked up for Louis C.K.
It's bizarre, like in the Twitter thread talking about the closure of the studio that Harvey Smith, he's like, those D&D campaigns, they were secretly like Arkane's best work. Like, because the amount of like amazing storytelling that went into those just
That's
from studios
awesome.
and friends was so great.
There's a D&D campaign in Prey.
Oh, really?
You're finding like different audio logs and text logs about the campaign and how it's going, and
Can
you find the
be
table.
a dice?
I haven't found any dice,
Okay.
but I'll try
That's
to be
fine.
honest.
That's a
I bet
different
there's dice.
studio.
There probably is, yeah.
I hope so.
But also, I was just real quick, is the lead designer for Dishonored and Prey is a guy named Ricardo Bear. And he always struck me as like one of the smartest lead designers I've ever interacted with in the industry. And so I feel like his name doesn't get out there as much. I'm really curious to see where he goes, how this whole thing shakes out for him. But yeah, just a ton of talent in Arkane Austin that put Prey together there. So it's a real bummer.
And last thing I want to say about it is just that like I was intimidated by it for years because it seemed like such a serious, intense game.
Right.
With a lot of rules to learn and stuff. And I was like so wrong about that. It's so gradual and well taught.
Yeah.
I think people who are put off by that should give it a try anyway.
Nice. Hey, on the complete flip side, when it comes to like faith in the industry, now Microsoft has shattered a big chunk of what they had. I was thinking about Hades 2 and Supergiant. Is there a more trusted studio in the world currently than Supergiant? Like, it's just so bizarre that studio is just batting 1,000. I
Just
feel
like
with,
consistency?
Yes. And with Hades 2, it's just like, well, I know they're really smart people. They're going to listen to feedback for early access now, and I have no doubt in my mind that Hades 2 is going to be a all-timer.
Yeah.
And it's already getting really hot reviews,
yeah,
right? Like
right.
before they even fix it.
Yeah, we haven't even started yet, and you already love it.
I'm booting it up. I'm like, what is there to fit? Like, what is this is the first draft you're letting everyone like go through. Like,
That's great.
why is this the low bar?
Yeah.
Like,
So you put like, what, 16 hours you were saying into
I
Hades 2?
think it was 12 last I checked.
Okay.
Yeah, I have gotten to. I have faced against like the final boss of a run, but I've reached them one time and I died immediately.
Okay.
And this is like early access ignorance because I really don't do a lot of early access stuff. Like your save you're locked in, right? Like whatever they add to the game, right?
I
never
am
gonna
curious
be a
about
wipe,
that.
right?
Not across the
Well-
board in early access. I don't know how it was for Hades though, but a lot of
okay.
games you're fine. Some games you're not.
But because
okay,
this one's so story focused, I don't know. Surely they've communicated that, but
Yeah.
you would think that they're going to be tweaking things and adding new
Yeah.
characters and stuff. So it would be a little bit
there's
weird to
no
like lock
ending
you out.
right now,
Right, yeah.
So
Or there's like a placeholder ending they've said of
Yeah.
like, you're done.
Yeah.
Thanks for taping.
Try again.
Yeah, I booted it up because I've been waffling. Like I watched the developer stream because I love Supergiant so much. They did the developer stream for like the technical test, and that was a great way just to get a rundown. Like here's all the things that stand out to us. Here's what we're changing. Yada yada yada. And so then I was waffling of like, do I jump into Hades 2 a little bit? But I realized I never played Hades on anything handheld. And so I booted up on Steam
man.
Deck and I was like, oh, this is going to be sweet. I think I'm going to hold off to 1.0, but like just that taste of like, okay, this is the dream platform for this thing.
I was shocked at like I feel like Steam Deck, it always works. Like I'm just not usually that's I'm more of a console player. So if I'm gonna play something that's like a Steam game, I'm gonna do it on the deck, and that's not always like the best option.
Yeah.
So this is one where I was like ready. I was like, it's super new. Also, yeah, newer stuff. It's not always like I don't know, ready and polished and stuff. And this is like. Hades 2 loads faster on Steam Deck than Hades 1 loads on my Switch.
Interesting.
It's so
Yeah,
it's
I
so
believe
clean. Yeah.
Yeah, I played Hades 1 on Switch.
Yeah,
like,
me
beginning
too.
to end. It's one that because I don't like early access. Like I'm just not interested in playing at that point.
Yeah.
But like I'm hitting that FOMO thing, and it's on the cover of Game Informer, so we're thinking about it a lot. And I was just read, Marx's Giant Story, so I might have to dive into this one, maybe.
Yeah. So what stands out? What's the biggest impression difference from Hades 1 for you?
So I think the most impressive thing about Hades 2 is the way that I feel the same way I felt when I played Hades 1, in sense of like discovery and like learning new mechanics and all that sort of thing, right. Even though I'm already familiar with like the franchise and like the base of it, largely because it's like I keep thinking of, I'm sure there's a better example than this, but I keep thinking of Tears of the Kingdom and the way of like you're revisiting this place, and there's all these same characters, but you're like, oh, I really want to get, a Poseidon boon because I want to see what he's going to say. Like, what's his take on all the stuff that's happened in the past 20 years or whatever.
Right.
But then also like mechanically, Malinoway's abilities are different. So the main thing is she's got a magic bar. Zagreus never had a magic bar, so she can charge up all of her moves, and then they use magic when you charge them up, which makes them like stronger or just different. And then the other biggest thing is her cast, which when Zagreus casts, it's like just a bolt of magic forward, and then you can augment that with boons in a bunch of ways. Malinoway's is she just makes a like ritual circle on the ground that holds enemies in place. And then if you charge that up, then it'll explode when it's done.
Yeah.
And so it's like those like basic features are just so much different that even just the combat, and also there's new weapons. All the weapons are new. I feel the same way I felt the first time, and it's like I felt sad that I could never play Hades for the first time again, and I feel like I'm doing it right now.
Right. Right.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I mean, is it at a point where it's like, I think everyone listening to this is saying, should I jump in now? I assume it seems like the numbers are already off the charts. Everybody's jumping in, but there's probably a lot of people like, do I wait? Do you got a hot tip?
There are more areas. Like, so in Hades 1, there's like different areas as you go through like a run. Yeah. There are more areas in Hades 2 early access than in all of Hades 1. There is more game in Hades 2 than there is in Hades 1, Jesus. And Hades 2 isn't even done.
That's so wild.
If you're like, I don't want to jump in because I think the only reason for me is like, if you want to experience the story all in one shot, I totally get that.
Yeah.
But like the mechanics of, and I'm not, there's major things I'm also just choosing not to say because I think it's fun to explore and experience them on your own. But like, this doesn't feel like early access to me in the sense of like, I'm just going to check this out really quick before the full game comes out. This feels like a full game, and then at some point they're going to add an ending to it.
Yeah.
And maybe, 10 hours from now I'll change my mind, but I don't think anyone's really expressed that opinion at all yet.
Yeah. The technical test had like some placeholder art for certain gods and stuff like that. Is that still in the early access version? Like, here's just a hooded figure. Whatever.
So Hestia was one. She's a goddess that gives you fire boons. She has art now. And I was playing the early access early, and there was an update that came in one day that added art for her.
Oh, okay.
So as I've been playing, there's only 2 characters that don't have final art yet.
Okay.
That I can remember. So, and I'm sure like they might add, sometimes there's different like emotion poses for the characters. Like we might get some of those, but yeah, it doesn't. I'm trying to like, and it doesn't run poorly. I'm playing on Steam Deck, and I'm not like missing frames. I'm not like loading long times between stuff. It's like I don't know. I'm really gushing about this game, but I'm trying to think more critically about it, and it's like there's just nothing's coming.
Even in the early access form, there's nothing that stands out as like needing to be buffed or needing to be nerfed. Is there one like OP way to do everything?
I have preferences of like the boons I like, but it's not like I've never been crazy about Aphrodite's abilities because she makes other enemies weak so they do less damage to you, and I'd prefer to do more damage myself, and that's the same from Hades 1, but that's not like I think I have the same opinion of her in Hades 1 as I do in Hades 2, so maybe I would change that, but I'm sure they kept it the same because someone liked it. I don't know.
Someone liked it. It's so weird that I'm ready to geek out about like Odysseus because he's in
it, yeah.
Yeah, he's in your kind of home base area, giving you like cool tips and stuff like that. Where it's like, I'm an Odyssey dork. I've heard that so many times. I can't wait to talk to Odysseus.
There's a Nemesis is a character.
Yeah.
And it's
from Resident Evil.
Cool.
She is in like in the first game, kind of like Meg, or like Thanatos, in that like you meet her early on.
Thanatos Thompson.
And
Meg Griffin?
you're like building a relationship with her, except I feel like with Thanatos and Meg, it was both instances of like, I knew they were romanceable, and you can kind of feel the slow burn of like as you get close to them. Nemesis, I don't know if she's romanceable or not, but they're really leaning, if she's gonna come back around, they're really leaning into the enemies part of it first.
Perfect.
Because every time she shows up in the middle of the run, I'm like, Nemesis, get out of here, man. I was doing fine. You're gonna mess up my flow. Oh, also, Kronos is like the villain that you're fighting up against. In Hades 1, like your dad, Hades, is the one that's like preventing you from going out. So every time you end a run, you come back and you talk to him. He's like, boy, you should not. That was Kratos. Boy. Do not.
He's Greek.
Yes.
He's Greek.
The
Anyways,
Greek accent.
I really bailed on my impression there. I don't know. There's like fun banter there of like, I'm going to beat you next time, Dad.
Right.
And this time, Kronos is like, he's not in the home base. Obviously, it's like a secret area he can't access, but he'll pop up at certain points in runs to like taunt you.
Ooh, that's
in
cool.
certain
That's
ways.
cool.
Where I also like every time I see him, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna stab you so hard.
But just know it. Don't eat me. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with starring Kronos. But it's fun. Yeah, so he's a Titan of Time. And so it's like, I don't know if this is already in there, but like I'd imagine there's going to be some fun, weird time stuff if he's like jumping into taunting you. Like, all right, play this level backwards. Just some weird, trippy stuff like that. So I'm expecting it to get weird.
I could be wrong, but there's an ability you get really early where as you're charging up a magic thing, you like briefly slow down time. And when I was like fighting him, I think he was immune to that. Like he couldn't be slowed down, and I thought that was it's like a brief thing, but I thought that was like a fun touch.
Why are you laughing at me?
I was laughing at you because, first of all, it seems like you're scooting more and more off camera that way, and also you're breathing louder and louder into the microphone. So if you can just fix those two things, just scoot in as far as you can here.
Knows?
Hey, Kyle. So Hades 2, jump on in. The water's great.
Jump on in.
Catch the excitement.
Kyle, Animal Well.
Yeah. It actually, look, lowering the seat is actually great for me because I was hunched.
Yes,
so
I
this
was
is
realizing
great.
how hunched over it I was.
Now this is good.
If you could raise your seat, Charles.
I tried.
Animal Well. This is from Bill Basso, the developer. It is pixel art, Metroidvania, very cool art. You might know it as the game that Big Mode is publishing.
Say donkey!
Say
The
it.
game that Donkey's been pushing. Yeah, so he started up the publisher there. And this is the first game that Donkey as a publisher is releasing, and he's pushed it hard on his channel, which is cool. Hey, hey, get it out there for people. Sure. Absolutely.
Turns out it's a good game to push.
Okay, yeah, Kyle, how much have you played? Where are you at?
I finished it last night.
Ooh, nice.
So it's not super long. I think I was like 6 hours or something like that. But it was definitely one of those instances where I was playing, and you know, I beat Prince of Persia somewhat recently. And I was like, dude, I don't know if I got another Metroid in me so quickly here, you know? And it was one of those things where I was like playing it on my Steam Deck. I was like, yeah, okay, this is interesting. This looks cool. I don't know if I'm going to finish this one. And I realized it was like, oh, I've been playing this for like 4 hours. Like it was like one of those instances, you know, it really snuck up on me.
Does it have some Fez vibes going on in there?
Yes, absolutely. I thought of that. Yeah, it reminded me of it.
Good.
It's funny
That was my original thought.
it went because I had
Give it back.
I had that thought while I was playing it, but I didn't really know how to like define it. I was like, why is this reminding me of Fez? I'm not sure. And I think it comes down to how like opaque the game is. Like it really doesn't tell you anything. There's no, and like the unlocks are kind of strange, and like it does a good job of like, I don't know where to go, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I was going the right way all along. I didn't even realize it, you know, like, which is that's like one of those game design things that I just don't understand how people do, where it's like, how did you tell me to go this way without making any explicit like map marks or anything like that? But yeah, it's hard to explain because it's very abstract. You're just kind of this little ball, and you're like working your way through this like underground place that's like themed sort of abstractly with animals. Like there's just animals everywhere, and most of them are friendly. But like you're not jumping on enemies' heads. You're not attacking anybody. There's no fighting really. There's one thing that kind of feels close to a boss fight about halfway through.
Okay.
Like in that, like you have to like, it's like this giant iguana that's like trying to lick you, and you have to get it to lick like something nearby you, then it does damage to them, and and that's like the closest you get to a boss fight. And
otherwise, it's just trippy, surreal exploration
and
stuff.
running away from like big scary things with like really cool sound design that's like really creepy.
Yeah.
Because I won't say what like the final thing is, but it's also impressive because it is a Metroidvania that is, as near as I can tell, I did not 100% the game. There's no double jump.
Interesting.
Which is like, I don't know if I could even think of another Metroidvania that didn't at some point give you a double jump.
Were you like waiting for a double jump? Like, did you have the feeling of like, I can't wait till I get that and this game's going to feel better? Or was it
what you have is you have like the items are strange because you have a slinky to help you solve puzzles. You have a yo-yo and you have like a bubble wand. And you can blow bubbles and jump on the bubble to get up to other things. It did a good job of I never felt like I was like, oh, once I get the double jump, I can go up there, right? Yeah. There wasn't a lot of that. It's either like I can either use the bubble to get up there, or I got to come around from the other way, And it just sort of taught me that over the course of the game. I'm very impressed with it. It was like Signalis was another one recently that I was like, I'm gonna start this thing. This looks interesting, and then I was like, well, obviously I'm gonna beat this game. Like that is what I had with Animal Well, where I was like, I'll check this out, and I was like, well, there's no way I don't see credits on this thing.
I will say from when they sent over the review code, which I sent super early, which was awesome. They did also say like, there's a lot in there. So I think even after you beat it, I still think there's a lot more that you can do in there.
There's eggs. You find like weird eggs.
Okay.
And then you find a place where it like I said, no text. You just sort of figure it out that it's like, oh, if I get 4 eggs, I can go in there. And if I get 8, I can go in there.
Sure.
I think the max that you can get is like 64. And I have found 21.
Okay.
So like, and those doors take you to different things. So like, there might be a double jump back there. I don't know, but
sure.
Yeah.
So where's it at? Must play if you like Metroidvanias. Must play if you love Fez. Where are we at for this thing?
I would be hesitant to recommend it to Fez fans because Fez is so puzzle. Like that is a puzzle game where this is lines up with Fez with like audio design and visuals a little bit, and then also just not really telling you anything.
Right.
But I think if you're a fan of that genre, like this is play it. Definitely play it. Like Prince of Persia and this are like on my top 10s currently. Nice. Like both, which I didn't think that would happen. Honestly, I like Metroids a lot. Like jump and searches a lot. What was the other one we came with? But
leap and look.
But
search action.
It snuck up on me in a way where I was like, oh, I guess I do have room in my heart for another one of these this quickly after finishing Prince of Persia, because Prince of Persia took me a long time.
Right.
It's like I played that in a way that I don't usually play games, where I only played it for like half an hour a couple times a week.
Just because you're exercising when you played it, but that was your cue to do more exercising, I think.
Yeah.
6 hours a day.
Yeah, that's right.
You like the game or not? Animal Well is the name of that game on PS5, Switch, and Steam. Cool.
Yeah. I played on Steam Deck and it was good.
Yeah? Okay, that's sweet. Hey, how well is this animal when it's lost in a big city? A little kitty, that is. Little kitty, big city.
Can't have a segue like that on the Game Informer show.
Yeah, try and keep up. All right, how's the game?
Who else? Am I the only player?
I played 3 hours.
I dabbled a little bit. I guess it's a pretty short game.
I played like an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, I love the animation, but what are you doing in the core of Little Kitty Big City?
Knocking stuff over,
being a little stinky,
knocking people's feet. That's fun. You can steal people's bread and then run away with it.
I've heard Goose Game comparisons.
Yeah,
is that fair?
Oh,
it's Goose Game if it's more about the delight of the cat than the misfortune of the people, if that makes sense. Like
Great
Goose
point.
Game is like you're
point.
trying to be mean to people because it's funny, and this is like there's a little beetle that's like a social media influencer and is like, I dropped my phone in the concrete. Can you get me a new phone? And the cat's like, oh yeah, I see people with phones all the time. And then if you go punch their ankles, they'll drop their phone. You got to run away fast enough before they catch you. And then you give the phone to this beetle. And they're like, great, I could keep social media managing.
Yeah. It feels good. It's like it's a hard game to take seriously because it's just a collectathon. You're getting a couple different currencies to spend on hats, and once in a while, a jump will feel off, and I'll bounce off the wall instead of like climbing it, and I'll be like, what the hell? The jump's off, and then I'll go What am I doing?
Why am I getting upset
This is a
about
cute
this?
game about a cat.
I did like that idea that you can hold down A to kind of like aim where you're going to jump. Which
That
is cool
feels
too.
great.
Yeah, that's like a cool way of like, all right, it's like blinking. Like I can set exactly where I'm going to go to convey the accuracy of leaping as a cat.
And
or
it does a
whatever.
slow motion pounce, and if the bird is starting to fly away by reaction, you can wiggle in the air a little bit and impact whether you catch it if you like get it in the angle it's going off at. So there's a little depth to it, just in a way that makes it feel good to control the cat, not in the way where it's like a deep game or anything. You are just going around collecting stuff, and it feels good, and it's super cute.
Yeah.
I unlocked an emote for making muffins. Like Cat's Little Kitty. It's that type of game.
Do you have a cat?
I have 2 cats.
You have 2 cats. Okay. I was gonna say I have 2 cats also, and I really like the game. I was wondering if someone.
I have 3.
4.
Ooh,
You don't have any. Get out of here.
one kid is
you have
worth
a
2 cats
child.
at max.
Oh, I got one of those too.
It's 4 cats in a jumpsuit.
I'm curious to like a non-cat owner if they played it and be like, I don't know, if like
cares?
some of the stuff would go over their head. Yeah, the fact that you said they're making.
We're familiar with cats, even if we don't own one currently.
What is this? Just pushing the ground? I don't know.
Well, yeah.
What is? There's a tail. What is this?
But I totally get what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Like, not creating the innate, like, this is worth looking at.
Yeah, well, you said that it's making
this.
muffins, and I gasped like that was a big deal. And I just
Yeah.
I like when my cat does that.
Yeah, and my cat
yeah.
loves looking at this game.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
His attention gets perked up, like with Stray.
That's the thing. I was thinking a lot about Stray naturally, and I was thinking
Yeah.
back to like, remember when Stray took home like 1,000 game awards? Like I beat Stray, I enjoyed Stray fine, but it was nominated for Game of the Year at
Yeah.
Keeley's things. Like, what is it? Is there a cat bump? I'm still trying to process. I'm curious to see like at Hello Kitty Big City, everyone's also like, this is the hottest shit ever. This is straight level good.
Stray, I think you could take really seriously because the graphics were a little more realistic and it was in a realized world.
Yeah, it felt like it was also telling like a story that like you should really be concerned about what's happening in this underground city of robots, you know?
Right.
Sure.
Which I'm finding that I prefer this of just like it is
okay.
it is a cute place to spend your time for no consequence.
Yeah.
It is also very much like the people that made it understand this is a game for cats. They understand cats in the sense of like your abilities in Stray are like you can jump and then you can interact with stuff and you have specific animations there. But this is like the sprint button is called zoomies. You can control your left paw and your right paw. Like it's just a lot of like specific stuff like that where it's a lot more interested in the like act of being a cat rather than like the act of moving through a narrative adventure.
Yeah, there's a million different little collectathons things to do of nap in these 7 places or whatever, and there's knock these 4 balls into the net, soccer balls like soccer, football in the UK, and
It's like the game that Red 13 played.
I was
Rero's
real
Kyle.
confused.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, I couldn't skip that.
Yeah.
we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but the individual paw on each trigger, left and right, it is like hard to direct that soccer ball specifically. Like you
Right,
can't
right.
really do a great job of it, and that's because a cat wouldn't, you know. And you're feeling that out.
It really
it fun.
simulates accurately that cats would be bad at soccer or football if you're in the UK.
Right, for the British cats out there.
Little Kitty Big City. Yeah, I heard it's just like a couple hours long. Cool little thing.
Is Liddy.
If
If I reviewed it, that'd be my headline.
And I'd be
Nice.
like, can you give me some other examples? Can you give me some other options here?
Something else, please.
has made me laugh several times.
Oh, good. Nice. Okay, Charles. Let's kick this gear into podcast overdrive here.
I looked over at your notes and I've been for the audience at home. I've been peeking over at Ben's notes this whole time because he's got the podcast thing.
Yeah.
Up higher. It is. He's highlighted important stuff. I assume
Yeah.
phrasing you want to say. Up higher, there was a page where all white text and then highlighted in the middle Louis C.K. president. I was like, this was a big deal. You want to talk?
I have that on most podcasts, though, to be fair.
You should share a
It's in my
screenshot
notes.
of just that, like tonight.
Yeah, I think
Just
that's
be like,
cool.
hey, here's a peek behind the scenes.
I
in my
don't want
notes.
to do that.
Backstage
Zero
pass, everybody.
context.
No, let's talk about Funko Fusion, everybody. Don't scoff. I hear you scoffing out there. So this is from Arthur Parsons and other folks that left Traveler's Tales after working on Lego games for years and years and years and years, and they started 1010 Games. And they are now taking all the lessons from creating these Lego games for so long, which Charles, it defined his damn childhood, and now taking all those lessons and bringing them to the world of Funko Pops. And
The natural evolution.
Finally.
But now there's 4-player co-op here for all these things. And the hook is, for this game at least, seems like wiggle room for different partners in the future. For this game, they're partnering with Universal. So you're going to be playing as characters from Universal movies, all your favorites, and then jumping between worlds. But just the rundown of the world in the worlds here. Jurassic World, the number one world.
You seem nervous about this list. You're like,
Yeah.
Kyle,
like,
do you know about?
Because-
You've edited my pieces.
but
I am
also
obsessed with
we
it.
were talking about it on the Game Informer show last week, and
Okay.
even I was like, oh, I didn't know all this stuff was in there.
Yeah,
Please,
yeah.
continue. Share some of
Jurassic
these.
World, Leo.
Minions.
Back to the Future. No Minions yet. Xena.
I'm sorry, Leo. I don't know what to tell you. Xena? Wait, hold on. Xena?
Xena's in here. Yep. It only gets weirder. Shaun of the Dead.
Hell yeah.
Nope.
Blue Jeans.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
All right.
Umbrella Academy. He-Man. Five Nights at Freddy's. Battlestar Galactica. Hot Fuzz. Jaws. Voltron.
Yep.
Invincible. M3
Amazon,
Yep.
The Amazon
Yep.
show.
Yep. Megan, the little doll girl.
Yeah, M3
And Child's Play 2 specifically. I don't know
Bride
why.
of Chucky
Unclear if this is the bride situation.
or the Seed.
Maybe the seed.
And also, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz? Like, just...
And Scott Pilgrim is all. Those are all Edgar
Yeah.
Wright movies.
Right. And so there's going to be multiple versions of Simon Pegg. And so they said, like, oh, we'll have some light interactions to acknowledge that there's multiple Simon Peggs. But the biggest one that I didn't mention is The Thing. And this is, as an outlet that did the deepest dive on The Thing and covered every version of The Thing, I feel like we need one more episode so we can cover the deepest dive on The Thing in Funko Fusion, Leo, because it is
so down for that.
it is the silliest thing imaginable. And this was like the core of the demo. They showed a little bit of Shaun of the Dead. That was like the tail end, which, believe it or not, I forget the character's name, but Nick Frost's character, he has like a vinyl record launcher as his weapon because he throws the vinyls at the zombies in Shaun of the Dead.
The Batman soundtrack, specifically.
That could be. But the core of the demo took place in Antarctica, and it was all focused on The Thing. So, Leo, it is so silly.
Are you okay, Ben?
No, because I love The Thing so much.
having a
and like,
moment.
I'm in the camp of like, they've defiled John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, game on, whatever.
Everything is defiled.
Yes,
Yeah,
go nuts.
It's
and
all
go
ruined.
nuts they did.
It's a scorched wasteland.
So you're running around like with co-op here in Antarctica in the base, which they say they recreated perfectly from the movie, like the layout of the base.
Of course.
And you're hearing the John Carpenter Thing score. Like, hey, like just those classic tones underneath you running around as a Funko Pop. And Leo, if you're designing basically like a Lego Games version of The Thing, this is the level thing of, of course they do this, but I just could not comprehend it, where you can run outside of the base early on and you got to have people to fight. So who do you fight?
Wolves.
No, you rescue the Huskies. That's like, okay, you've rescued 5 out of 6 Huskies on the base. And there are just waves of Norwegians coming in, and you're fighting Norwegians on the Antarctic base. And they're just like popping into little vinyl pieces that you're picking up like
Because they're trying to
studs.
stop the thing from spreading.
Right, but instead it's like, here's just some enemies.
That's so funny.
Like, did they have to email Kurt Russell? Like, is he...
So there's no voice acting in the
right,
game.
yeah.
I
didn't think
tried
there would be.
asking, like, is there any interaction with any of these directors? And the wording was very mushy. It was kind of like, we've had some real cool interactions with movie houses. And, we got to work with Monkey Paw when we worked on the Nope sequence and stuff like that. But it's not like John Carpenter's giving his stamp of approval for this absurd
Although
version
he is
of
the one,
thing.
he's like the one that I could see
Yeah,
maybe doing it
that
and
could
being
be.
like, yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Can I get a copy?
And it's money.
yeah, he does like money. He
likes
do
money.
like money.
Dude, like
true.
money. Phil Spencer style.
It is the weirdest. It's the weirdest thing possible to have,
It's
like,
called Phil Spencer style. Going to work, Phil Spencer
Yeah,
style.
getting that bread.
filling up that wallet.
Phil Spender.
Whoa. I already know.
Incredible work, Ludo.
But to see like a Funko Pop's version of the creature from The Thing is just so absurd.
Is there a spider Funko from The Thing?
I don't know. I think they said that stuff from The Thing that they aren't actually Funkos yet, but they're going to be one of those types of deals apparently. But it is, so you can also become The Thing and then you can spread it to your other co-op players in this, and it like affects them in some way. Like,
Is this local co-op or online?
It's only online.
Just
I
only
asked
online.
about this
Only
because
online.
I was
Yeah.
I talked to them like a year ago, and they were like, we're considering local, and I think he often references studies, which I think is interesting because I heard the Hyper Lightbreaker people talk about this too, of like people mostly play online.
I'm sure.
3-player groups.
Yeah,
And so they with Funko, they're like, we'll do 4-player because that's like the standard, but like most people play online in groups of 3, which I thought was interesting. Anyways, I was gonna say also with the thing we're spending a lot. I was really excited to talk about this. We're spending a lot of time talking about one of the only franchises I know nothing about.
What? Oh my god, it's the best one in the batch, man. The thing
Hot
rules.
Fuzz
Okay.
is pretty good.
If there's one Funko property,
Yeah. Oh, the mummy stuff I think is going to be interesting. Seems like they're teasing. They're
no
gonna have
Fast
some
and
stuff.
Furious.
No, they got to leave room to grow, I suppose. DLC for Fast and Furious,
I would
maybe.
buy it.
Honestly, sequel.
I'd buy Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh,
DLC.
yeah, that seems important.
They'd have to do driving, and that would be
There
hard.
are vehicles in trailers. I don't think we've seen vehicle gameplay.
I'm done making excuses for you, Funko Fusion.
Get on Arthur.
We didn't get to see the Nope stuff, but they mentioned like some of the weapons in that. Like, you'll have the
floating shoe.
winking well cannon, and then also they said that one of the characters has just a wavy tube man.
I refer to as a weapon in that film.
Of course. A melee weapon of the wavy tube man.
Throwable quarters.
Oh, wow.
Just horses
See,
that you
it
throw at
makes
the
itself.
enemy. Just a horse gun.
So, yeah,
That
the whole
Red Dead
thing-
mod.
Blood Super Soaker.
It's coming out in September. Charles, will Funko Fusion be a success? Or is it going to be like, where on the spectrum of, no offense, Kyle, but Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, of like, there's no VO, it's weird to see these licenses, but whatever, versus, I guess, a Lego game. Where on that spectrum is this game going to land, do you think?
In the mid. It'll land
Coward.
somewhere on that spectrum. No, I think the thing that's so interesting to me about Funko Fusion, and I'm interested to see how it does, is that they were like, we're going for a teen rating.
Yes.
We're specifically licensing a lot of like adult movie franchises in the way of not just adult, like movies that only adults would have heard of. Like there was a thing in there of it wasn't on your list, but I saw it on like some promo art. I'm pretty sure it's Knight Rider.
Oh, right.
Which I was like, I think I saw a joke about that in a show once, but I don't really have a concept
Well,
of
they
it.
rebooted it in like 2010, and I'm pretty sure your generation was pretty into that reboot, if I remember
Okay, you're
correctly.
right. 10-year-old Charles watching the Knight Rider reboot.
Can't wait for Knight Rider.
But yeah, like, so I don't know. I think now that I know it's teen rated, that's interesting to me that was like a thing they were going for. Because I remember hearing about it first and being like, who is this for?
Yes.
And now firmly the answer is Funko Pop adults.
Yeah.
Right, which I just have never met someone who openly likes Funko Pops. And I'm sure they're out there. And I feel sorry that they're so openly dumped on amongst everybody I've ever met, because that makes it probably hard to enjoy and collect them. So I assumed that it was kids who liked them.
Yeah.
And this is news to me, the team rating.
But it's also, like if you ever look at Funko Pops, like the lineups are so often like, so like a Funko Pop I have because I'm a big fan of the show is I have BoJack Horseman Funko Pops.
Okay.
Which I love that show. I don't, how many people bought those, How many of those did they make?
Right.
They should add it to the game, but
They made Evolve Funko Pops. They could put those in the game. That's how Evolve comes back from Turtle Rock.
oh wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's also, but I really like. I like the Legos games. I
do
like
think-
that they're doing more of the. I always like that lens. I wish there were more games that took that lens of properties where it's like in the thing, it's like if that was like a hardcore video game and you had like waves of fighting these Norwegians, you'd be like, that's weird. That doesn't happen in the movie. But in this, it's like it's so silly and fun. It's like I can't help but love it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that like some like Hot Fuzz fan out there is like, finally the video game adaptation I've been looking for.
It has like the
It's
vibe of like a Lego Dimensions, just like, I can't believe they got that license. I don't know if the game will be interesting at all, but it's cool that there's a slice that exists for Beetlejuice fans,
Yeah, and the violence is like how Lego Chewbacca tears Lego Stormtrooper's arms off.
Yes.
It's like, in any other Star Wars property, this would be, I'd be covering my child's eyes.
So I do think there is that audience of like, Funko adults, and then also kids that like they're playing a lot of Fortnite or whatever, and it's like I think that idea of having online multiplayer where we can just run around and like kind of shoot each other or turn each other into zombies in the Shaun of the Dead world. Like I think there is some avenue for that to be fun for kids.
And if it isn't for Funko adults, then they're in Discords now.
Yeah, they live in Discords
But
now.
still, there should be couch co-op. If it's trying to harken back to
I
Lego
agree.
Star Wars,
Come on.
come on.
It's easy. It's just a right click in Unity.
Just turn the button on. Yeah.
Again, it's just having values.
Kyle, I want to talk to you about Batman Arkham Shadow.
Okay, yeah.
As a big Arkham fan, this was announced last week that they're making a new Arkham game, and it's a meta VR experience.
Yeah.
Which it seemed like the internet was melting down around. Am I wrong not to be angry about that? Or it's kind of like, well, it's not like this is robbing us of a Rocksteady Batman game.
I actually am quite happy because I don't know if I've talked about it on MinnMax, but like Suicide Squad is such a weird thing because I actually started pretty strong on Suicide Squad. I was like quite enjoying it for the first couple hours, and it made me so sad by the end. Like I was so disheartened and bummed. I was like, this is where Arkham is. This is where my favorite video games of like some of my favorite video games ever.
Yeah.
This is literally where the story ends. Like this is Arkham now. So like when they announced it, like I was happy just because it's like, okay, this story will continue I don't know what it is. I'm guessing it takes place before Suicide Squad or whatever, but like I was just happy to have more Arkham of any kind after Suicide Squad. If
Try again at being the last thing.
Yeah, if Suicide Squad didn't exist, I would feel differently. But with Suicide Squad as the finish line, I'm very happy to have to go back. You know, I don't know.
That's interesting. Well, I wonder where it is going to take place because so the teaser has a bunch of rats, so it seems like Ratcatcher is probably being teased as like the big villain. And I had to look into like what is the status of Ratcatcher as a villain in the Arkham universe. Apparently, he died in a comic, and Batman found his corpse. So if
in an Arkham comic?
Yeah, so if
weird.
that's still canon, which it was pitched as the comic being canon, then this would take place before Arkham Knight, at least.
Okay.
And also,
That's
it's like,
fine.
it's fun to just see this weird deep cut stuff of like, okay, apparently you learn the backstory in the Arkham games that Penguin apparently threw Ratcatcher into the shark tank from Arkham City. It's like all Ratcatchers had like a wild journey that none of us have seen throughout the Arkham games. And I think it's a cool idea for like the VR version to like, okay, it's just swarms of rats coming at you.
That could be cool.
Shout out to Prey, or to Dishonored, I should say.
It is watching that trailer where it's like it's been a long time that I've taken a disclaimer on the bottom of the screen so seriously where it's like not actual gameplay. Because it's like, there's no way that this VR meta game looks anything close to this at all. Because like even modern like pre-rendered cutscenes that they would show it, you know, in the past, like an E3, hew pretty closely to where the final graphics are ultimately. But this was like the first time in a while I was like, well, we know it's not. I'm not going to be looking at the fur on these rats. I don't think
it's going to be a little bit rough. Yeah. But also I'm excited about Camouflage is the studio that's developing it, which I love. Even from the studio's founding, they had a behind the scenes podcast, which I listened to every episode of. It was so good, chronicling the development of Republique. And then they made Iron Man VR years ago. It was like 2020 that game came out. But I never played it until the other day, Kyle. When this news popped out, I'm like, I should finally check out Iron Man VR.
This is why you put it on the list.
Yeah, because I was curious
I was trying
about
to talk you out of it.
No, so I jumped into it, and it's like that game was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like I finished it or anything.
No, I didn't.
It's not.
either.
We're not maniacs here. We're just curious what Camouflage looks like when they're trying to make a licensed superhero game. But like, it is a cool idea that like you're flying as Iron Man, right? So you actually have to like put your hands back a little bit, like that level of interaction of like, okay, I guess that is the Iron Man fantasy of like flying by having your hands awkwardly pointing at the ground, and to have that, but then to like pop your hand up and like blast people and then go back to like flying to do that hover again. Like just that physical thing is unique enough. And I appreciate that like they're going for a story in that game. Like Ghost is the villain.
They got a Downey Jr. impersonator in there.
They sure did. They got Jennifer Hale as Pepper Potts in there, which is fun to hear. Going back to the Metal Gear roots of Ryan Payton, who started the studio and he's the associate producer on Metal Gear Solid 4 and stuff. But like they're taking narrative swings. It's like, okay, slowly explore the house. We're gonna try. It's not just shooting gallery as Iron Man, you know. Like I like that studio a lot, and I am cautiously optimistic about what a full Batman VR game would look like, other than Rocksteady's, which is not on Meta. I tried to play that, but
yeah, that's like one of the reasons I booted up Iron Man a couple weeks ago was because that was like one of those VR experiences that like for a period of time was like only on PlayStation VR.
Right.
And it wasn't even, I'm not like a huge Iron Man fan or anything, but it was like, that seems like a VR experience that a lot of resources got put toward that only existed on one platform. Oh, it's on Meta now. Oh, I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like, I don't think a lot of VR games get that much attention. But yeah, the Arkham VR game for PlayStation VR is interesting. It's like, it's a lot of detective work. Which is like what I frankly hope this is. Like this new one.
I could see
I
that.
want to be sort of creeping around as Batman. I don't really want to be fighting people necessarily in VR. I'm not really interested in doing that in VR. But like to be Batman and use a bunch of gadgets and like figure out an interesting story potentially. Like that's what's so cool about the Rocksteady one is like it's a weird and like they, you know, like it's got an interesting story and it's like one of the moments in the end is like Joker's kind of like getting into your head and you're like looking in a mirror and like you're becoming Joker in a mirror in VR, which is like, that's a cool idea that like you couldn't really, like Arkham Knight did some fun stuff like that, but like to actually inhabit the Joker when you've been inhabiting Batman the whole time, like it's not this like amazing game. I'm like saying that you should go out and play, but like there's cool ideas in there. And I think that's good groundwork for more Batman VR. Like I think it could be cool.
Yeah. And taking the talent and lessons learned from Iron Man VR. Like,
I don't really want to be punching people. I think I've hit a point where like I still love Beat Saber because you slice through. Like that's the gameplay. You are slicing through something, but every other instance where you are hitting something with a sword and it doesn't go through, I'm like kind of like I'm hitting a wall with that stuff and it's like I don't really want to do this in VR anymore. I don't want to hit an enemy with a melee weapon in VR. I'm not finding that fun.
What if it's just a bunch of like clay faces like the end of Arkham City? So it just like slices through whatever and then there's no friction.
I mean, honestly, because that's the thing.
Oh, that was a joke.
Honestly, I mean, going through is the big thing because like if you're Asgard's Wrath, like you're hitting something, but it's like there's no stopping. You are just going through and it's not satisfying to like hit something with
Vader
a weapon.
Immortal. It was so stupid. Like, okay, you win every fight by just wiggling a lightsaber inside somebody for a little bit.
So if you're slicing a sword through clay, that could be, that's more interesting than hitting a bad guy with a fist in VR to me.
Right.
Totally.
Hey, Leo, you know what's better than a bad guy with a fist?
Nah.
Patreon, baby.
Oh.
You can't spell rat and ratcatcher without Patreon. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, everybody. Find the tier that's right for you. You find something sustainable that keeps this entire operation sustainable. And special bonus boost for everybody here. If you support MinnMax on Patreon at the $5 tier before Sunday, May 12th, if you're at the $5 tier or if you're a current Patreon supporter and you jump up to a higher tier, we will DM you on Patreon with a game code. You can choose if you want to get a game code for Dice Folk, which is a deck builder roguelike turn-based strategy game that came out earlier this year to very positive reviews on Steam. You can get a code for Dice Folk. Use dice, Charles. You like this to summon creatures, turn-based strategy stuff.
Can you turn into these dice?
You summon the monsters kind of in a Pokemon style way from the dice kind of being thrown out, but I don't think you can.
Charles had the idea of being a die for the first time, and he has not.
I think I'm gonna have to push that idea aside.
Okay.
I think that's I'm just going to be asking that about every game once I start asking the question. And I should just celebrate the fact that there's dice in a game.
And it seems like it's a very good game. So shout out to Dice Folk on Steam. You can get a code. We'll send it to you on Patreon if you're a supporter before Sunday, May 12th. Or Kyle, if you want a little more action focus, but you want that rogue angle, of course, you can also get a code for Undermine, one of our favorite roguelike games back
Undermine.
from 2020.
The game that made Kyle like roguelike.
That's exactly it. And they are releasing Undermine 2 in the future as well. And they ask that if you enjoy Undermine, that you wishlist Undermine 2, because it does look very cool. But shout out to the developers at Thorium for Undermine. So here's how it works. If you support us on Patreon, before Sunday, you can choose Dice Folk or Undermine. Will DM you on Patreon. We have 200 codes to give away. So if the number of paid supporters for Patreon is lower than 4,610, that means we still have codes to give away. So jump in at that $5 tier and we'll send you a code, or you can upgrade, we'll send you a code. And shout out to MinnMax's biggest supporters. I'm excited about this one. Leo Vader. Yeah?
He's busy.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Charles Hart.
Yeah.
You like food?
I love food.
Great. Then you'll love Factor. heating up outside. We're talking about it. It's getting beautiful outside. You don't want to spend time in the kitchen looking at everybody playing outside through the window. What you're looking for is quick, easy, good meals. Nothing better than Factor. Leo, how many minutes do you got in the day?
Kyle doesn't have any games installed on those.
Are you serious? Is Nintendo Switch?
It's just for show. I don't even know why it's charged.
What a weirdo.
Yeah. Strange.
Factor meals, 2 minutes in the microwave, Leo. They taste damn good. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in 2 minutes, no matter how busy you are. You'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. 35 different meals, more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You'll always have new flavors to explore. Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, blackened salmon. I truly love Factor. It's so good. 2 minutes in the microwave, a great meal. If you want quick, easy food, Factor is absolutely the way to go. You can go to head to factormeals.com/MinnMax50. Use code MinnMax50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code MinnMax50 at factormeals.com/MinnMax50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Thank you to Factor, and thank you to the fine folks at Liquid IV. Leo, what makes you thirsty in life?
Well,
Hades
Hanson.
2.
Hades 2.
Yes.
Hades 2.
Even just the hooded figures with the placeholder art.
What's under there?
You're going to need some electrolytes to replenish yourself based on that level of thirst. And Liquid IV is here to hydrate you with benefits like electrolytes, essential vitamins, clinically tested nutrients.
It's not in this water bottle right now, but it's been in this water bottle.
Hell
recently.
yeah. Genuinely,
the walls.
I do enjoy coming back from a big sweaty bike ride, and then I'm like, I need water, but sometimes you need like super water, and that's where Liquid IV comes in for extra rehydration. You rip open one of those little packets, pour it on there, shake it up like a cocktail from God himself, and you chug it. It's tasty and good. They got
It's like a middle ground between water and soup.
yes. Liquid IV! Sugar-free, we got white peach,
From the copy.
green grape, raspberry melon, lemon lime. You can turn your ordinary water, honestly, after you had Liquid IV, ordinary water, it's swamp water. It's sewer water.
Swamp.
I want my tap to push out Liquid IV.
Yes.
You could probably rig that up. I could help
Probably
you.
could.
Turn your ordinary water into extraordinary hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use MinnMax at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MinnMax at liquidiv.com. Thank you to Liquid IV. And thank you, look at this.
Whoa.
To I Am 8-Bit.
We can't see it.
For supporting the MinnMax show. Well, just feel it. Because if you go to I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, you can get the vinyl soundtrack for Hades, one of the best soundtracks ever made. And that feels like a soundtrack that's made for vinyl, doesn't it? Just like, it has a vinyl vibe to it.
On the Coast, that's such a great. That's when you come up to the service first. I have that song saved on Spotify. I think about that song a lot. There's a lot of. It's very lush.
Yeah.
Also, I did my lunch song this week. Game Informer was "Good Riddance" (Eurydice solo).
Okay. You want to take it away? How's it go?
Farewell to all the earthly remains.
Wow.
Imagine that, but if it felt warmer coming from a vinyl album.
Yeah, I need that. Wow.
I knew the song, so I did the recording, and then I went and listened to the song. I was like, oh no. Oh, she's practiced. Huh?
Kyle, do you know what genre that soundtrack is?
What genre?
Yeah, it's Darren Core.
Wow.
He did it. Shut it down.
My hands hurt. It's too good.
It's been an exciting day.
I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. Get that Hades vinyl soundtrack. It's the wisest investment you can make in yourself, I think, is to get the Hades soundtrack on vinyl. Check it out and go support I Am 8-Bit because they support the MinnMax community in a big way by shipping out a prize each and every week. Whoever submits the best community question this week wins. Come on, I Am 8-Bit. Stop being so cool, I Am 8-Bit. You win the Grim Fandango vinyl soundtrack.
It's performative at this point.
You think?
Yeah, it's a little much.
Trying to make us think that they're cool.
Yeah.
Right.
What soundtracks can we attach ourselves to so you like us by proxy and mission accomplished, I Am 8-Bit?
Yeah, you got us.
Yeah.
Grim Fandango, obviously one of the best soundtracks of all time.
Absolutely. Only maybe better. Ooh, Leo Hades soundtrack or Grim Fandango?
I'm a Grim Fandango man.
Yeah, I might be on Fandango man.
Hey, these songs go so hard.
Yes. Also, you can go to I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store and use the promo code Got it for my mama. Got it for my mama for 10% off of everything.
Is that
No spaces?
MOMMA or MAMA?
MOMMA.
Okay.
Grim Fandango to the polls.
Leo, you just like locked eyes with me, waiting for a moment of silence. That was perfect. Incredible work.
Use that promo code. Thanks to
it is.
iMapeIt. All right, remember the best question here. So, chock full of says, "Go for my mama" is a wild promo code. No, Chuck. It's got it for my mama. Just to be very clear. Adam Castellanos writes in and says, "Hello, my friend." Convenient. My friend is getting a PS5 for their birthday, and I was wondering what game I should get them. They have really only played Minecraft and Animal Crossing, so I'm wondering what is a great PS5 game to get for someone new to gaming.
Is that a typo? Because PS5 doesn't have any games.
Wait, Leo, can you explain that to me? Because I hear you say it all the time, and I assume it's a reference to something, and I have no idea what it is.
I believe it started back with when PS3 first had no games.
Okay.
And now it's kind of carried forward.
So it's before my time.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Okay, I didn't have a
PS5, first
PS3.
year or two,
That's
had no
true.
games.
Yeah.
And so that it kind of
This is Astro's
itself.
Playroom erasure.
Yeah.
So is that
Sorry,
just
it
the
should have
go-to
been got
answer?
one game.
Okay, someone new to gaming,
Yeah.
PS5.
They played
Astro's Playroom.
Minecraft.
Yeah.
So they have the dual analog stick down, right?
Yeah.
I
If you say Returnal, so help me God.
no, not Returnal. I was thinking like on Horizon or Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's the obvious. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing about Horizon though is like it's actually not a very complicated game ultimately. I mean, it can be if you. All right, so, you know what? I'm just gonna cut it off now because I'm making.
You're saying it's more approachable than Spider-Man? You out of your gourd?
No, I don't think it is.
You got your green
it is
goblin-
not
hobgoblin
more
gourd?
approachable than Spider-Man, but it's like it's nice to have a really nice looking like exclusive thing for your console that you're like you want to see what this thing can do.
Yeah.
And Horizon looks good, and it's not like if you can do the dual analog sticks, I think you're in good shape for Horizon. But I mean, but Spider-Man is yes the more approachable game.
I'm thinking more about genre, though. I feel like if they like Minecraft and Animal Crossing,
Yeah.
Yeah,
might
that's
be
a good
looking for
point.
something
Yeah.
more in that arena.
So what do you got?
On PS5, I really don't know what they have access to.
And if you want that exclusive, Harvestella.
There you go.
Is that on PS5?
Wasn't that a Switch game?
It's not important. Let's start with Astro's Playroom.
That was my. I didn't realize when you asked this question that they were getting it for the first time. I assumed. I was just like, that's the game. That's the game. That's like
Yeah.
top 10 games on the PS5. That game rocks.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it's good.
I do think
Leo.
I can't imagine not liking Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart as well. Like, if you just get the entire Insomniac suite.
That's a sleeper good pick, I think.
Yeah.
For sure, for showing off the power of the console and
Yep.
for being like within the wheelhouse of what they've experienced.
It's delightful. Okay, so Beefcake wrote in with a question that is so off-putting. I was terrified by it, but I teased it and said, "Do you guys want to answer a really weird physical question?" And everybody said yes. And so I want the record to show I saw this question and I said, "Absolutely not." And then I thought, "Oh, maybe."
My guess is we'll be smelling each other.
my
Beefcake
shirt will
writes in
stay on,
and
right?
says, "I want you all to smell each other."
How did you know?
And then describe the smell. Now, Charles, you're immune from this because
this
you're
isn't
new.
a bit? That's actually what it is?
Not a bit.
That's hilarious.
So Leo
weird.
and Kyle, if you two could just smell each other and describe the
Do
smell.
you consent?
Yes, I do. I almost put on cologne today because I thought I was like I should
Interesting.
smell good because we're going to be like maybe I don't know if the basement's going to be hot, but I decided not to because like I didn't want it to be intense and like give everyone a headache or something.
Okay, so Leo, what's his non-cologne?
Well, are we general
Get up in
aura
there.
or in the pit?
well, I don't know about the
Not
pit.
in the pit. No one goes in the pit. What are we? Fallout DLC?
Hey, this is why I asked. That's funny. Oh, that's working.
Is it really? That's what they taught us to do in science class.
Is
right?
this the new spiciest interview?
Wow.
To have a spicy chicken wing?
It smells. You
Smelliest
smell
interview?
clean.
Okay.
You smell like shampoo or something, like Old Spice.
Okay. I did
shower.
this morning.
Okay. Is Leo smelling
I haven't smelled
good,
Leo
or is he smelling like Leo from like 5 years ago? Okay.
I'm learning in this moment that I have no idea how to explain smells. Like it's like
It's a tricky one.
It's like dancing
You
about
can get in the pit
architecture.
if you need to.
No, I don't want to get in the pit.
Okay.
Get in the pit.
Need is a strong word.
There's like a little bit of sweetness to it.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
Yeah, it's not overbearing. It's just like just a hint of sweetness. You know,
Would
just
you
like a half a
use-
teaspoon of sugar in your coffee.
So you would put Leo's Pit as your cologne?
No, there's not enough there for a cologne, which is a compliment.
Yeah, sure. Totally.
Okay.
I
That's the
understand.
goal in life. No one should smell cologne worthy.
I'm freshly showered with deodorant, but this is a sweater I've worn a couple days, so I wasn't super.
I wouldn't have known.
Great.
Well, there you go, Beefcake. I hope you're happy, you frickin' sicko. Christian Hall writes in, says, hey, MinnMax, brief story and question for y'all. When I was younger, I was told by my uncle that in bowling, when one knocks down all the pins, besides the 2 back pins, it's called a zucchini split. My uncle told me it was called that because if someone gets a zucchini split, then they have to bite into a raw zucchini. So goes their tradition.
Okay.
I was recently bowling with some friends, and when one of them got a split, I shouted, "Oh no, zucchini split!" I soon found out that this was not a real saying. Any lies from when you were younger that you believed to be true for way too long?
That's awesome. Not quite a lie, but I remember being like 19 and Googling, how does artificial gravity work on spaceships? Like, how do they do that? Right. It's just in movies.
You just gotta flip that switch, and it looks so natural. Like, of course that would be a thing. Yeah.
They spin a lot. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's good. Canadian writes in, hey, everybody. I have a question for Leo. During Bonus Pod this week, which is our Patreon exclusive podcast, thanks for unlocking
It's so
it
good.
and getting a Steam code. It's so good. Charles was on this week, and it was very good if you're into D&D, and he shares a bunch of good tips.
And Sonic.
And they talk about Sonic pooping if you're into that, too. Beefcake, you'd be into that if you're into Sonic. During Bonus Pod this week, Charles and Haley discussed possibly having D&D appear during the next charity stream. I was thinking Leo could run a game of Deck Quest. What do you think about that, Leo?
Great.
I think you scared him.
Love it. We
did it.
at Game Informer for an extra life, we had D&D. Do you remember this?
As the theme with Ben Reeves.
Yeah, certain donation tiers, we would get to do a 10-minute
Right.
chunk of Ben Reeves and a different guest. I think that's who it was. Of like on a green screen with some backgrounds we had found of like different
so
fantasy
chaotic.
locations. God, I gotta find that and watch that.
But we literally did this during a charity stream. I think it was like 2020 where we played Deck Quest, remember? I think we played in like tabletop.
Oh,
But
right.
it was like, there was somebody who maybe had a few too many drinks and it was kind of derailing the entire thing and it felt terrible, if you recall the specifics about that.
Oh, that drama.
Yeah, but I think it's possible to do it again, I think.
Yeah, and physical. We
And
could get
physical.
the actual cards.
That's right.
Totally.
Travis and Fargo writes in and says, if you had unfettered access to Charles Martinet for 24 hours, how would you use him? Voice of Mario, of course. I'm sorry, the Mario
PG-13.
ambassador.
So I have a video saved of I believe it's Shigeru Miyamoto when they were talking about how Charles Martinet wasn't gonna be the voice of Mario anymore.
Yeah.
He says like, "Thank you, Charles," and then bows.
Oh.
And I have that clip saved for whenever I do something sometime. I can post that and then be like, Shigeru Miyamoto said thanks to Charles. So I just want to get Charles Martinet to talk or do specific things for a lot of people to get reactions from them that I can then
Right.
pretend were for me.
Like he walks through a crowd and they go, "We love you, Charles!
Exactly. Yeah.
Father our child, Charles!"
Yeah.
Just that type of good classic
Nice
stuff.
3-pointer, Charles.
I'm not good at basketball, but I feel like I'd be better. I'd be better at getting a 3-pointer than Charles Martinet.
Maybe.
Kyle, I have a $50 bill in my wallet. Don't ask me to prove it. I will slide it across the table to you right now, little man, if you can tell me the name of the new voice of Mario.
Oh man.
Can I use my phone?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Crispin Glover?
The rat catcher himself?
You said Chris Pratt, right?
Right.
But Crispin Glover was the funnier.
That was funny.
Okay.
But you could have argued that was
That's
the new
true.
voice and made $50 sweet dollars.
Yeah, you
Dang
blew it.
it.
You blew it.
Make that Phil
they-
Spencer money.
Full sponsor?
Kevin Afghani.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how I forgot that. I'll never forget it again.
They didn't like announce it though. It was like
It's
in
one of
the
those things where
credits,
like,
right?
Yeah, check the credits.
Yeah.
Same attitude for like, hey, who developed Princess Peach Showtime? Just check the credits, you idiots.
Yeah.
You
Right.
gotta beat it to find out. It's like, all right.
It's a fun challenge. If you pay us for credits. Dustin L writes in and says, what's your go-to brand for shoes? Y'all like brands?
I thumbed this up because I don't know anything about fashion and I want to
no,
know.
you're supposed to be the expert
ready
if
to
you're
learn?
answering these. I will say I don't know anything about fashion, and I don't like the concept of brands overall. Unlike our dear friend Kyle.
Yeah, I've been wearing slip-on Vans, exclusively black slip-on Vans for like 10 years. Like I just buy these again when they wear out. And occasionally I'll have to put on a laced shoe, and I'm like, this is terrible. Why do I ever put up with this?
I used to wear slip-on Vans when I worked at Game Informer, but that was something that changed when I met the love of my life, who
Just told you no more Vans.
and she belittled me.
Wow.
Said you deserve shoes that don't fall apart every 2 months.
Also, your primary smell is slip-on Vans.
What the hell?
What?
There's a man here.
We got a man
got a beard on a man.
Without a chair. How's it going?
Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb.
Shove me into this. Jeez, hi.
Dan,
Take up your shoe. Take up your shoe and put it on the table and
let
talk
us
about
smell
it.
you. Let us smell you.
What is happening?
Let us
Take your
smell
shoe
you.
off.
Nice to meet you. I'm Dan. Yeah, very nice to meet you. Why am I taking my shoe off?
We're talking about what shoes you wear.
Yeah. Show us those brands.
What kind of question is that?
It's ridiculous.
Whoa.
Nike, I think.
Air Jordans.
Oh, no.
They're AFI
they pump
shoes.
up?
That's correct. AFI shoes, my goodness.
Is that? I don't. It says AFI right there.
Is there AFI on your shoes?
Air Force Ones.
Yeah, AFI. A fire inside shoes.
That's right. I never shut up about them.
Yeah. Well,
There's a podcast you should check out, dude.
I've heard about them. Yes.
with his athlete's foot, there certainly is a fire inside of those shoes.
I haven't heard anyone say athlete's foot since 1998.
You should watch commercials. I assume they're still on the air all the time. Shoes zero to me or whatever. Except I bought like those Adidas, like the black Adidas with like white stripes.
Superstars.
Oh yeah, I wear those.
What are they called?
Superstars.
Superstars?
Oh, they're usually like white with the black stripes.
Get on this mic, Dan. No one can hear you.
I'm tying my shoe because you made me.
Why?
Why are you tying
Your shoes on camera, Dan.
Hi.
slip-ons
I wore
here.
those shoes for like 8 years, and it's like they never wore out. Like they eventually got to the point where they wore out, but still, like I was amazed by it. Buy those shoes, everybody,
They're so
and
good.
don't think about them ever again.
I wore those all through college.
Yeah.
They're great.
I wore those in high school.
Dan, you want to read this next question from Mason Cowell?
Yes. Hello, all.
It's
I-
weird
my
that
shoe,
Dan's
but I'm
here,
okay.
right?
I assume he told you.
Was this planned?
But I guess to him, I just finished listening to the deepest dive on Tears of the Kingdom again, and I wanted to pose the question. Period. Now that we're a little past the hype of TOTK, which game do you all prefer? I like BOTW more. I feel it's much more streamlined, the exploration, the story, and the only two collectibles being Koroks and Shrines.
It's a tough question.
So we're letting it sit. We've let it sit for a while. Now the question is, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom.
I mean, I think if I am in the mood to play Zelda, I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom. Like I booted it back up like 2 weeks ago, and like because I left side quests because I was like, I'm going way too hard on this. I need to leave something to do in a couple months.
Yeah.
But like Breath of the Wild is like the important one to me, if that makes sense.
I think it does make sense.
Yeah.
Like I have more of a connection to my time playing Breath of the Wild since
Yeah.
it was such a new thing, and I never felt like a Zelda like that. But I do think objectively, I think if aliens come down here and say, "Show us your best Zelda game," I think Tears of the Kingdom is everything Breath of the Wild is. If you're playing it for the first time versus Breath of the Wild, I think it's just better.
Yeah, especially going back to Breath of the Wild. Like my nephew was playing it a lot after I was playing Tears of the Kingdom. And it's like I still love this game, but like I just feel like I'm playing with my hands tied behind my back at a
bit,
certain point
yeah.
for abilities and stuff. I was losing sleep the other day, tossing and turning endlessly, thinking about Leo's top 10 from last year, and that number 10 on his list was Dead Island 2, and Tears of the Kingdom did not make the list.
Oh my god!
And Leo, I respect
Good
your,
seeing you all.
Yeah, I respect the hell out of your tasting is, but I was just thinking about that idea of just like Tears of the Kingdom not doing Mr. Immersive Sim, and still Dead Island 2 is better than Tears of the Kingdom in your eyes, or you enjoyed it more is a better way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Wow,
Including for its, I don't know.
Because all the
I get some a lot more excitement
all
for Dead
the
Island
things
2.
that you were saying about, I held my tongue, but all the things you were saying about Prey earlier, I was like, yes, that is what Tears of the Kingdom does so well.
Right.
Is just giving
I
you
don't
these
know.
tools that
I
can let
think
you do anything.
But also, interestingly, I specifically was like, "This, we're going to give you this glue gun and it doesn't break the game." They give you a bunch of stuff that breaks the game in Tears of the Kingdom.
What does that mean? What does break the game mean?
Like one best solution for everything.
I don't know if that's true.
I thought that was all we talked about for Game of the Year.
Was that
That was
there's
my whole
one
memory of
that's
the
like,
2 times.
that there's one solution for Tears of the Kingdom for everything?
I think
Right.
if the one solution is Ultra Hand, then that's like That's like a whole mechanic. That's
Yeah.
like the one solution in Call of Duty is to shoot people with your gun.
You're just wrong.
Nothing
Your
you do.
taste is wrong, and your opinion needs to be affected by what the things that we say.
You know, I've been hearing it my whole career. At a certain point, gotta accept it.
You big Prey guy, like the original and the or the immersive
Talking
space
about the
one.
new one, yeah.
The new one. Did you like the original one? I kind of like the original one.
I did for sure. It did the Mario Galaxy thing before Mario Galaxy, running on the big orb.
Oh yeah,
I guess it did.
Yeah, and the whole bar intro.
Portals
I like the
before
game a
Portal.
lot.
Yeah, that was a cool game.
It's good.
I think I had a team kill achievement, if I remember right. I remember thinking like, this is a bad idea, or maybe it was
But-
Turok.
Yeah, I don't
It might
know.
have been Turok 360.
It was definitely in the era of the funky achievements where you even could get like -5 game
You talking about the
game
Prey,
Like the
Prey like 06.
like multiplayer?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think anyone played that.
That was, I reviewed it 20 years ago. So.
Hey,
That
can
was
someone
back when
tell
like, every
Dan
game
to
had
put
a bad
headphones on so
multiplayer
he can
mode
hear
on
me?
360.
Oh, put on headphones, Dan.
Oh, I hate
They're secrets. Oh, you got it. It's no, you got it right.
Welcome
Okay.
to the show.
Are we live? Are we live on the
Mics.
internet, or is this a recorded thing?
It's a confusing one. We're technically pre-recorded, but we're yes, you're podcasting right now.
Okay, I see. Yes, I am confirmed podcasting. This isn't just how we hang out.
Is Dan the host now? Is that
I
what's
guess so.
happening?
I was the
You want
MinnMax
to
show
read the
now.
next question there,
It's
Dan?
my third gaming podcast.
Does the audience hear Ben's ghost?
I don't know. Can they hear you, Ben?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening.
Who's reading what now, Mr. Hansen?
Oh,
You're reading the next question.
Oh, I see. Okay. Jose Arroyo. If movies were released in the early access format, what would that look like? And what 2024 to 2025 are you jumping on? Fantastic Four, Narnia movies,
oh, hang
or
on,
Zel-
no, Dan. Those are my notes. Those are.
Louis C.K. president?
I don't know why you keep bringing that up. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting question of what movie would you want early access to see as it was being developed? And my answer was, I know it's dorky, but like I am so curious about that Marvel Fantastic Four movie. I know it's basic to say Marvel at this point, but that and then Greta Gerwig's Narnia movies are my biggest like, what is going on with those? If I could just watch those being made, I'd be in love with it.
I mean, there are movies that don't exist that I want to see in the alternate universe. Like, I want to see Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, and I want to see the original version of Solo with Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Like, I want to see their finalized version, but I don't really want to see like early versions of movies,
Especially Marvel, which would just be actors on a green screen.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. Remember the Wolverine movie that leaked? I'm assuming you guys all watched it that way, right? The terrible Wolverine movie with
X-Men
Hugh Jackman.
Origins?
I don't think I've
Wolverine?
ever seen a Wolverine movie.
Oh, you're missing out. The first 5 minutes are really good, and then you can just walk away. But it's
Is it
I would
the
love to
prequel one.
yeah, it leaked
Yeah.
like it was a big news story that it leaked early and it had unfinished special effects.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever like watched an unfinished movie. And maybe I will always be tainted because that movie was going to be bad no matter what, but it was made worse by just like terrible special effects and like wires that hadn't been digitally removed yet and stuff like that. And it was just like, yeah. So I don't think I want to see movies early that I can think of.
I want to see, like, if we're really going with the video games metaphor, I want to see them like putting a version out and just kind of like testing the water. So like we'd see challengers, but there's like a third tennis player boy. Like, should we cut him? Do we like him? Or like I don't know. Yeah, like a Fantastic Four of like, what if there's a fifth one? Why are all my ideas just adding another cast member?
Yeah, you got to get to Hollywood, man.
I was in LA for E3 2006, I want to say, and my former roommate from film school was out there working as a PA, and so he got to see early screeners of movies.
Yeah.
And like it was like things where you had to sign basically NDAs and everything and go to a fat pack
Don't
theater.
show your
Like,
roommate.
It was, like focus group type stuff. And like I want to say it was summer of 06, it could have been 07. I saw Borat. And this was like a couple years before it came out. And I remember, I've never had a movie theater experience like this ever. People were losing their minds, like screaming at parts. And I remember the part where they're running around that conference room, like with the dildos, and they're both naked and something like, this is never going to see the light of day. This is never, there's no way this ever airs like this. And it did.
This is too funny to comprehend.
Screaming like in joy? Or
Yeah,
okay.
or in disbelief too, that they could see something like this.
Yeah.
And they'd never seen it before. It was scary.
It was a
Who is
horror
this man?
movie.
I would like to see this Stanley Kubrick AI. I know it didn't happen. There's not
interesting.
actually a thing.
Yeah, like
watch.
like it's not a movie that exists, but yeah,
It would have been better. I didn't hate the Spielberg one, but Kubrick's would have been better.
I feel like you're apologizing to me. You can hate AI if you want.
You're Mr. AI. Are you wearing the
I
shirt?
won't shut up
Show
about
him the
AI.
tattoo. Come on.
Spell Hilliard without
You had a
AI.
kid because there was a kid in AI.
That's right. What
You're
is that? That's a
disappointed
kid?
when they weren't a
That looks
robot.
fun.
Hey, Zane Dukes writes in, y'all. And Zane Dukes asks, what's the deal with Unfrosted?
Oh, jeez.
Is it bad? Is it funny?
Who's seen it?
I watched it. Did anyone else watch it? Oh, yeah.
I want to watch it, genuinely.
A lot of great actors in there.
It's a lot of funny talent. I liked it. It's one of those movies that I looked at like reviews and I was just confused of like, it's an absurd comedy on Netflix. We're expecting high art. Like it's very much in that almost like Airplane vein of like just rapid firing jokes. And like, here's the scenario where I liked it though, just to really set this whole thing up is my friend Kelsey, who's also a big Seinfeld fan. She came over, we had some beers, we ate a bunch of Pop-Tarts and we watched it. And I laughed like over 10 times. It's like mission accomplished. I had a good time watching that movie.
The reviews I saw were like comparing it to like Blackberry.
Oh, I like that. That was really good.
I love Blackberry.
Yeah.
Wait, positively?
No. Like saying like this is bad because it's not like Blackberry or Air, and I'm like, why? What world did you think that's what you were getting? Was there like a trailer that made you think like, oh, this is like a Blackberry style documentary on the invention of Pop-Tarts? So
that is so absurd. Yeah, I saw some take where it's like, talk about what's the word I'm looking for? When they put the promo stuff in the movie, advertising in the movie. Product placement. Yeah, it's like, talk about product placement. It's nothing but that in this movie. It's like, well, it's about cereal. Like, and it's a weird thing where he didn't actually license it with Kellogg's. Like, it wasn't like approved by Kellogg's or anything, but it's like, yeah, it's about brands. That's kind of like the joke is like all these different cereal brands intermingling, but it's not like it's ramming it down your throat talking about how delicious the cereal is. Go out and buy it. Like,
I remember there's a joke in the trailer where Jerry's talking to Snap, Crackle, and Pop. And they're asking for more money. And he says, here's more. How about I add a new guy? What about Snap, Crackle, Pop, and... Do you remember Hanson what the fourth one is?
I forget. But it's just...
But it was good.
It ties back to what Charles was saying about adding a guy.
Okay,
so I think you might like it.
Here's my pitch. Snap, Crackle, Pop, and Lock. This is when dances. He's cool with the kids.
Yeah.
I feel it tracks with like everything I've seen or heard of Seinfeld doing post Seinfeld, where it's like I kind of didn't love him on Seinfeld. He's kind of the worst part of that show.
Oh, kind of.
He's definitely the worst part of that show. And then everything since then has been like, all right, kind of like very lame, obvious stand-up, a CGB movie, and then a streaming movie about pop. Like, what are you doing, dude? Just be rich and shut up. Like we don't.
That is extra weird. Is like his choice of projects, it being so rare. It's like, okay, so what is really speaking to him about this one?
There was one documentary called Comedian that I remember was pretty solid. This was like late 2000s, but
right.
He's funny in that episode of 30 Rock.
Well,
I love that episode.
Also, I mean, the unspoken thing, I've been thinking about it more and more, I guess without spoiling everything in a big way, but the series finale for Curb, I feel like might be up there for like greatest TV finales of all time.
It was
like,
good.
It's perfect. It's like pitch perfect finale, which is so tough to do for a show that's been on for over 20 years.
Yeah, and honestly with Curb, I feel like it's been kind of hit and miss since like season 4, so it's been like more bad than good. And so I'm so glad this like final season was actually like a pretty solid one with a really good ending.
Yeah, I was fine on the season. It was an okay season, I thought, but then the finale was just like, this is everything I want. Like there's new jokes, not just retreading constantly old ground. It's interesting. It has the fun meta layer for Seinfeld, which I could not get enough of. Like I love that finale. So there we go. Unfrosted, everybody. Here's a question though. Movies made by streamers. I also feel like if you're watching a comedy by yourself in your house, like it inherently will be less fun than going to see a big new comedy in a theater. And I'm trying to think of like successful comedies released by a streamer.
Jeez.
Is there anything? Or is just everybody docks at huge points because it turns out it's not that funny when you're sitting there watching it myself?
I mean, Blackberry came out in theaters, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I watched that at home and loved it.
That's true. Yeah.
Is successful, you mean like good or like popular and
I guess
well
good.
received?
I think maybe more popular than good, but I guess like the Adam Sandler stuff for Netflix, like Murder Mystery is like one of the most viewed movies of all time or whatever with Jennifer Aniston. But it just feels like this era of reviewing like Netflix comedy is like they're all just going to get trashed.
You know what I'm really curious about? Like an hour ago, a good friend of mine texted me saying, "Have you seen John Mulaney's new show? Apparently, it's a thing on Netflix. That's like he says he knows I'm a big like Letterman, Conan, like old late night fan. He says it's very much like weird late night. They only did like 6 episodes. Very very interesting. That you've been watching it?
Yeah, I watched the first 1.5 episodes, and it's live.
Oh, okay.
And he'll have people like call in. Like today's topic is coyotes, and people will just call in and tell coyote stories.
Okay.
And like Seinfeld was actually there, and like Seinfeld keeps asking people like what car they drive, you know, and like it's you honestly as a Letterman fan, like you would like it because it's like a little unhinged, it's a little weird, it's live, like and Mulaney, it turns out he's a funny guy.
Yeah. I watch his Letterman, whatever Letterman's
Right.
current show is. It's all right. Letterman's. I love seeing Letterman alive and healthy and as sharp as ever, and I'll watch every episode he puts out of that show. But I typically didn't watch Letterman for the like insightful long interviews. You know, good for him. He seems happy, but you know.
Okay, guys, what do y'all like for a question of the week?
Can you give us a little recap?
Oh boy, we have.
Dan, can you give us the recap? Because you got the
Yes.
something about
Scrolling
shoes.
up here, you had one about PS5 Minecraft. You had one about beefcake. You had one
smelled
about
Leo.
zucchini splits. You had
Zucchini
one
splits
about
pretty good.
telling
We did
lies
smell
when you
each
were
other.
younger. You have one about D&D and Deck Quest. You have Charles Martinet. You have
Yeah, that's good.
shoes.
Shoes was huge.
Kingdom, early access movies, and Pop-Tart movie, and that's it.
Yeah,
I like early access movies. I think that's a weird topic.
it is a weird one.
None taken. You smelled me, and that wasn't memorable for you.
Charles, you're the guest of honor. Who do you want to give it to?
Oh, don't. I feel.
Nope. We must do it.
Yeah, no, I like early access movies. I thought my bit about the third Challengers boy was funny.
It killed. It killed.
Snap, crackle, pop, and lock. What'll they think of next?
It brought the house down. All right, congratulations, Jose Arroyo. We will ship out, or I'm 8-Bit will ship out the Grim Fandango final soundtrack to you. Congratulations. Now it's time for something that we call Get a Load of This.
Wait, we can't even hear the theme music when we're here?
No, I didn't have it booted up. Sorry. Hey, get a load of this. It's a funny thing. My friend Grant sent it to me, and then I saw Anna post it in the Discord as well. Have you all seen these billboards for seizetheawkward.org?
No.
It's like a mental health resource, but the odd thing is that it's cross-promoted with Final Fantasy VII. So there are billboards everywhere of like Cloud and Aerith high-fiving, and it's like seizetheawkward.org. And then it's about mental health. It's just a bizarre angle, which a lot of Final Fantasy VII is dealing with some of those themes, but I would never think in a million years it'd have billboards, and this would be an angle of helping people. But hey, if people are going there and then it's helping them out, then more power to them.
I haven't played Final Fantasy VII. Are the issues resolved by Cloud and Aerith high-fiving?
Yeah, largely.
Like
yeah.
there's lots of unresolved trauma, and then they like high-five, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's like a quick time event.
Okay,
yeah, that's basically how it all works.
Would you be able to place something if I sent it to you, Hanson?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to send you my
sounds
Get a Load of
committed. I'll do it. Hey, get a load of this. I always think of Saturday Night Live as the show I care about the most, that I watch the least. Like I don't really like watch Saturday Night Live, or even I'll watch like YouTube videos on Sunday mornings, but I'm always fascinated in what the show is doing and what's happening and stuff.
Yes.
And there's a new podcast called I think it's called the Seth Meyers and Lonely Island podcast.
Oh, right.
And it's the Lonely Island guys and Seth Meyers.
And they're from the MacGruber crew.
That's right.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
They will probably talk about MacGruber soon, but every episode is they like go sketch by sketch, like episode by episode. And so like they talked about their first digital shorts, and then they had the Lazy Sunday episode. And it's like the kind of like in-depth stuff that I want to hear of like, like here's how we did it. We borrowed a camera from a friend. We threw like a digital short font on it because it had been used a couple seasons ago. And it's like, and it's like the stuff I'm more interested in about Saturday Night Live is like how they basically revolutionized the show. Like they're very humble about it, but I mean, there's no denying that like they changed the trajectory of that show in a big way. And it's super fun to hear that group talk about it. And even though Andy Samberg constantly complains about doing a podcast and often says he doesn't like podcasts and doesn't want to do it.
That sucks. All of his promos, he's just been doing that. I just hate that tone.
But the thing is though, is he's like hilarious, and he's really good at it. And he's really funny, because that's how he is on Comedy Bang Bang too. But anyway, I really like that show a lot. I've been enjoying it.
I will listen to that. That sounds
There's links below for all this funky stuff here.
That's cool. I watched the Beavis and Butthead sketch from SNL, and I was like,
that was good.
maybe I've been too hard on these guys all these years. This is pretty solid.
Well, it's funny. My kid, who's 12, is like kind of getting into it now, and it has been this stark reminder of like, oh yeah, this has always been a show for like 12-year-olds. Like that's really
everyone's favorite season ever is always the one when you were in like 10th grade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Leo, I've got your thing here.
Great. So this is an interview with some random people off the street from the 80s about drunk driving. They made drunk driving illegal formally. And here's some people's reaction.
Oh, hang on.
Oh no.
Okay, hang on. And here it goes.
Restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting common is when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving. And pretty soon we're going to be communist country.
Any attempt.
They're right. They called it. They called it. So I just think that's fun to look back on, and really, it's something comforting about the cyclical nature of things and things trending towards good.
Yeah. Charles, you got one, man?
Get a little of this. This was back to Hades. I learned this from the Hades 2 Rapid Fire interview, which I guess you can find on GameCore.com.
Interesting.
And Zagreus is sometimes known as Orphic Dionysus because there's like a version of him that was Zagreus, and then he was like ripped apart by Titans and then reformed as Dionysus. And there's like a weird thing of Zagreus and Dionysus getting conflated in that way. And this version is also the son of Zeus and Persephone, not Hades and Persephone. Oh, so it's interesting.
There we go. Game Informer, everybody. Hey, Nick from Monster Hunter 6, they shared a get a load of this in the channel where there's a ton of fun stuff that people share each and every day in the MinnMax Discord there. And it was a tweet from an actor, and they say, today is the perfect day to announce that I get to join Lego Fortnite as a smuggler/scoundrel in a Star Wars update.
Is this Erika Ishii?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, there we go. Please enjoy Sarah Almalay being such a damn good director that all she has to do is make faces at me. And it's just a clip of them making faces and laughing in the booth. But I always forget that friend of the show, Sarah Almalay, who was on the Deepest Dive for Mass Effect, that she's the voice director for Fortnite at this point. Like, that's such a wild, huge game. It's so awesome.
Oh, that's
super cool. Hey, Dan Reichert, believe it or not, I think that's it for this episode
Unless
of the
you
MinnMax
have
Show
a get a load
podcast.
of this?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Is there something we should get a load
Fun
of? Dan?
fact.
Is this an obvious thing? Are people talking about the contestant on Hulu? I think it just came out, so I don't know.
I
have
want to
no
watch.
idea what you're talking about.
Okay, great.
This American Life had a story about it many years
Yes,
ago.
I think that's how, because Bonk told me about that. She
Yeah.
heard the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a documentary on Hulu now. They had a reality show in the late 90s in Japan, and it was called Shonen something. And they did a competition where they basically have like an audition for a bunch of people. Be like, hey, do you want to do like a gimmick for the show? And this guy won, and he didn't know that the deal was, we're going to put you in a room in Japan with no TV, no anything. You have to be naked. So you have to strip down completely naked. You have no food. You have no, like, any, all we are giving you is this rack of magazines, and you have to survive off of things you win from magazine writing contests. And so he writes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things, trying to win. He's like winning dog food and eating it. He's winning like meat, but he has to like win ways to like cook it and stuff, like rice, but he has to figure out how to like. So he's doing this, and he does it for like 15 months. Wow. And surviving off just stuff. And like, the thing is, the door is unlocked. They're not like keeping him captive. He could leave at any point. And this guy like wanted to be an entertainer and wanted to be a comedian. But it's really dark too. Like, they put him in a weird spot, and he talks about it being like Stockholm syndrome, and like he felt like he couldn't leave. But also, they didn't tell him it was getting broadcast. So he's naked. They're broadcasting it week after week after week on this extremely popular show. So he has no idea. They told him, like, yeah, we're not going to air any of this. And then by the time I don't want to spoil what happened. The moment where he realizes what's happening is orchestrated real crazy.
Yeah.
Where he did not know he was suddenly a celebrity, and then he's made extremely aware of it in a crazy way.
I need to watch this. I want to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very weird, very interesting. Also kind of dark and kind of messed up. But yeah,
Fun.
That would be a great video game.
yes, has a happy ending. For sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, but that is it for this episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. We got a couple things we got to let you know about, everybody. First things first, we have our big community meetup for MinnMax happening in September, where we're letting the community vote on which city we fly out to. That is still happening. We're going to have a stream soon where we're going to lock down the finalists and then let the Patreon supporters vote. But, surprise twist, everybody. Everybody who said, come to LA, we are coming to LA. Not for the September meetup. Good God, no. But
we were in San Francisco a month ago. I feel like we don't say that enough when people say that.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But here's the thing. We're having a community meetup on Sunday, June 9th. Dan, I'm sorry, it's Giant Bomb night. At 7 p.m. Pacific. If you're in LA, come out and meet us. We are teaming up with our friends over at Glitch, the indie game publisher. They're inviting a bunch of indie developers as well for a big fusion of community meetups. So we're going to be at Button Mash Arcade, Sunday, June 9th, 7 p.m. Pacific. It'll be a casual thing. Come on by, say hello. A couple of us will be out there saying hello, so come meet some other folks from the community. Let us thank you for supporting MinnMax here, and meet some indie developers from Glitch while you're out there. So Button Mash Arcade, Sunday, June 9th, 7 p.m. Pacific if you're in LA.
Nice.
Also, Doc Lightning is going on, everybody. Throughout this month, we're encouraging the MinnMax community to make a short, simple documentary. Shoot it on your phone. It has to be under 3 minutes. Under 3 minutes, then we're going to watch them all and have a fun screening session. Dan, remind me to reach out to you after this.
Yes.
It'd be fun if you made a documentary and I had an idea real quick, too. That's under 3 minutes, but I'll pitch it to you over dinner.
Yes.
Yeah, just make a documentary.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's such a piece of cake. Shoot it with your phone under 3 minutes. This is the time to rally, everybody. If you're on the fence about making one this year, please do. We definitely want to top last year's, and last year's was amazing. So
It was so awesome, and there's so many great ones, and don't let that scare you off, because if anything not great, it gets lost in the sea of how many there are and how fast they go. So it's just an excuse to make something fun that's part of this great project that everybody's contributing to.
Yeah, Doc Lightning. You can check it out on Patreon if you want to learn more about how the whole thing works here. But just a reminder, if you jump in at that $5 Patreon tier, unlock the bonus podcast feed, we will send you a code for Dice Folk or Undermine if you do it before Sunday, May 12th here. And in that bonus podcast feed, you're getting early access to the MinnMax Show podcast. It's also ad-free. Let me just run down what else we got. We have the Dungeons & Dragons planning session that we recorded last week, which was super fun.
I was there.
We have the full one-shot for Dungeons & Dragons that Sarah and Leo and Charles and I are doing. The podcast version will be available for your listening convenience in that podcast feed.
Complete with audio soundscapes.
It's going to be beautiful.
yeah.
Also, you get bonus podcast each and every week hosted by Haley. It's the companion show to this show. The dirty secret is oftentimes it's better than this show. So unlock bonus podcast in the bonus podcast feed. Also, you unlock the cohort Hootenanny, where we got 8 of us together for a bonus podcast. It was a super fun time. If you like the Pissy Zone vibes from the Game of the Year debate, that is now available in the $5 feed for Patreon supporters. Also,
if you like when we get loopy and goofy, that's a great piece of content.
That's what it is.
I was like, I wish I had a YouTube link for this. I could share.
It's so good. Also, all of MinnMax's interviews are in there. We just had one with Mark Healy, the co-founder of Media Molecule. He tells a ton of wild stories. It's one of those like best case scenarios for interviews where a developer who's been around for so long left Media Molecule. He's free to say whatever he'd like, and he tells a bunch of wild stories about, Valve trying to buy the developers of Little Big Planet and get them to come work for Valve because of their tech demo, which had Portal tech in it. This was in 2005, before Narbacular drop in Portal. So they're trying to recruit them for their Portal tech.
For them portals.
He talks about how Microsoft sent somebody out to try and steal Little Big Planet to make it not a Sony project. He has a ton of wild stories, so please check out that interview. It's in the bonus podcast feed.
So much love for that in the Discord I've been seeing.
Yeah.
A lot of different stories resonating with people.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. He talks about a mental breakdown that he had while working on Black and White with Peter Molyneux and how it led to a religious epiphany. Like, there's a lot in that interview. It's a lot fascinating stuff. But also, Max Spoilers, our spoiler cast. If you like the deepest dives, here's another option for that. We just had one for Fallout, the TV show. That's in the bonus podcast feed. You guys did a great job on that.
Thank you.
They just posted one. Haley and Jacob and Huber posted one about Dragon's Dogma 2. It was such a fun discussion about Dragon's Dogma 2. That's also in that bonus podcast feed. So you get all of that. You support Independent Games Media, and we'll DM you a game code. Jump into that $5 tier on Patreon. We greatly appreciate your support. But that is it for this episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. Dan, thank you for joining us, sir.
Of course, anytime.
Anything you'd like to plug over at Giant Bomb there?
Sure. On June 9th, we've got a live show at Summer Games Fest. If you want to go out there,
why would you?
Oh, by the way, we were talking about John Mulaney's Everyone is LA.
Yeah.
The thing that reminds me of are those Giant Bomb shows.
Oh,
because it's just like everyone is in LA for this comedy thing, and they just show up to this live thing.
Oh, awesome.
So,
Okay, cool. I believe,
check it out.
we've got a couple nights of doing the streamed live show, and then we got the ticketed live show at a concert venue on Sunday. Hanson, I think I saw a schedule. I think I'll be seeing you out there.
I believe so. Maybe Charles Hart as well.
Excellent.
Interesting.
Sounds good.
Charles will be there, just to be clear.
I will.
Mick and Jeff Grubb play Daikatana over at Giant Bomb right now. That has been fantastic. Also, the Fire Escape cast every other week. That's my stuff.
That's beautiful. Charles, you got anything you want to plug?
You can go to GameForward.com and watch Hades 2 Rapid Fire interview, which I edited.
Sweet.
And Alex Van Aken shot, and what's his name? Marcus. Marcus did the actual interview part. You know, the most important person. Also, I'm just gonna plug this. My brother Andre wrote a piano album, and it's very good. His name's Andre Hart, and the album is called "Friends Can Say I Love You."
On Spotify?
It's on Spotify. It's on all the streaming platforms. And
Cool. Love it.
I play trombone on one track.
Sick. Sounds beautiful.
So it's cool.
Well, hey, that is it for this big funky episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting everybody. We greatly appreciate it. And stay tuned for some D&D on MinnMax's YouTube channel or in that bonus podcast feed. Kyle, thanks for being here, dude.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you.
Leo, thanks for being here, dude.
You got it.
Charles, thanks for being here, dude.
You flew me here.
Dan. Well, the community did technically. And Dan Riker, thanks for walking over here.
Of course.
All right, thanks so much, everybody. Until next time, be good, have fun, let's go.